Boom. Damn, wasn't really expecting that music. It must be something new on StreamYard, but I digress.
Boy, that music sound like you. That music sound like you. That music sound like you finna call in to pay a bill or something.
Call in, or either call in and make her pay a bill. But I digress. But welcome to the Undisputed GOAT podcast, man. It's good to be back here live on this Saturday on February the 22nd, the last week of February, man. Got a lot to talk about, man. But first, man, I got to ask the panel, man, how y'all doing this evening, man?
I'm alive and breathing, doing well. Job's going great. Daughter's doing fantastic. She's almost done with hockey this month. And shout out to a certain somebody from the UK. And doing well. Can't complain. The weather's going to start turning up here in Wisconsin this week. So, yeah, doing good.
BRF.
I must admit, life is good. So I'm going to test this out here on the podcast as well. If you can tell from the audio, the difference in quality. Got earbuds in the mic. Tried this with the PSP pod last night. I haven't heard too much from it last night, but I'm hoping it did pretty good. So we're going to try this here tonight as well. Work's doing pretty good. I had this. I'll say this as far as work. Been helping a guy last like couple of years, like with an order that he's not necessarily an order, but trying to do some quotes for him because he lives out in Massachusetts. He's building a house out in not Atlanta Buckhead, but the Buckhead here close to Madison, like around Eatonton. Big house. And this order I finally got sold for him. This is how you know it's going to be a big house. I sold this man like $50,000 worth of windows and doors.
Ew.
House.
Yeah, exactly. So I was finally able to get it done after like 2 weeks of just struggling, trying to get the order right, and then having to fight with the credit center to make sure everything's lined up. But I finally got it done yesterday. So I got recognized. Had an all-star meeting this past week. Got recognized. I did 1.2 million in sales over the last fiscal year. So I must say, job's going pretty doggone good. I can't complain, but I look at it like this though: if you're on this side of the ground, you're on the right side. Another day breathing, it's a blessing, and you know it's always a pleasure to share the stage with y'all two fine gentlemen. And I'm just ready to get this bad boy popping.
Hey, man. Gotta admit, man, I cannot wait to do the show today because you know what my favorite part of this show, this is the favorite part of the year, as a matter of fact. Outside of the Super Bowl, there's one thing that I love, and that's the road to WrestleMania. And I'm glad I got two of the best wrestling minds in this industry because they can go into depth all day and I ain't got to say a word. So on that note, we about to let them cook because I want to know you guys' thoughts on the Rock and Cody Rhodes segment. And if you want to set the tone, Flash, be my guest.
Have at it, bro.
All right. So I turned on SmackDown today when I got home. While I was cleaning, I sat down and watched specifically that segment because the night before I was on Reddit and a bunch of other posts, and apparently it caused a little bit of a tizzy. So I was like, all right, I want to watch this myself. And I'm annoyed. I just am. On top of the segment itself and then the press conference afterwards, like, I understand that I am going to be a soon-to-be 43-year-old man, okay? I understand that. I do realize that wrestling is predetermined and it's all storylines and actors. I get it. But I need you to be kayfabe. I need that sense of that where this is, real or whatever. It's like if you go to a movie and you're watching Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise comes out and says, right in the middle of the movie, like in the middle of an action sequence, and just goes, hey, everybody, I just wanted to talk to you about this certain thing or certain, whatever. Just talk to them about, like, religion or something, or just talked about how he's an actor, like right in the middle of the movie, it would completely take you out of the movie. And there was no lead up to this at all. Like, it went from Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, the lead up to WrestleMania, to Rock trying to cost him the title and helping Reigns, to going to Netflix and The Rock showing up out of nowhere, doing the ambassador thing, and then he's like everybody's buddy. And it just didn't make any sense. And during the promo too, like, it was Ambassador Rock, and then it's all of a sudden he's turning into this like evil mastermind. It just didn't work. There was no lead up. There was no and then he goes, there's just no setup for this. There's no nothing. And then you go to the press conference and he talks like he's part of the board, which he is, but he's talking it from a perspective of like, this is a performance. Like, he's talking about how this is a performance. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, are you a wrestler or aren't you? Pick one. Like, are you in or are you out? And it's just, it's really confusing. And if somebody has a different take other than me, because that's pretty much the common take that I've read and heard, and after me sitting and watching it myself, I kind of felt the same way. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. They have time to fix this, or I shouldn't say fix this, to see where this goes. So then I'm okay. I mean, maybe if they do something like whatever happened. I mean, I guess I'm at the point where let's see what happens at Elimination Chamber on Saturday. Is this the start of the Homelander Dark Cody Rhodes storyline? Which I personally don't think will happen, because he's their new John Cena. All the kids love him. Okay? All the kids love him. And I actually, besides what you read on Reddit and on Bleacher Report, he's actually had a really good babyface run as a champion. And that's really hard to do in this era. So is this setting up Rock and him at WrestleMania? Is this setting up Rock? I don't know. I just, BRF, explain it to me. What am I not seeing?
Well, I think this is the first time since Cody Rhodes has been back in the WWE that a heel turn is a possibility. Whether people like it or not, it's the first time it's a possibility. Because if you're looking at that promo, he was torn. He didn't know how to take it. He was torn. He didn't know how to take it. But at the same time, it was like you could kind of see the gears rolling. And I feel like part of it was like, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna. This is what I think is gonna happen. I think at Elimination Chamber, I think Cody's gonna say no, because I think ultimately at the end of the day, I think he wants to maintain his integrity. He wants to maintain the reputation that he's already built since he came back to WWE. I don't think they're gonna go through with it. But I'll say this though, as for me personally, I feel like you could play the whole thing as far as like Rock being the ambassador and being all buddy with Cody and all this other stuff. You could kind of play it as like he just lured him in, and then he finally brought him into SmackDown, and it's like, yep, time to put a dagger home in him now. I want you to be my champion. I want you to be my champion. I don't need the championship. I want you. I want to own you. The whole? I mean, you could take it as the whole thing was just a big kind of,
kind of like how Vince McMahon wanted Stone Cold to be a corporate champion.
That's what I thought. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, it kind of put me in the mind. It kind of put me in the mind of that. But I do think it's going to have a similar thing, because ultimately at the end of the day, like what Vince McMahon first tried that with Stone Cold, it didn't work because Stone Cold was just too real, and he wanted to stay true to himself. Now, the second time when WrestleMania X7 happened, even though we all can admit, even though Stone Cold was hilarious as a heel, I think we can all safely admit it was the wrong decision, and he shouldn't have done it. It was the wrong decision.
Worst booking decisions ever.
Exactly. He shouldn't have done it just from the standpoint of Austin did it because he thought his character was becoming stale. He thought he was becoming stale, and he thought he needed a reboot, something to refresh.
Yeah.
When he made that entrance in the Houston Astrodome, and that crowd went nuts for him the way they did, they should have called an audible on the spot. They should have called an audible on the spot. And he even said it. And he even said it himself after you win the championship exactly the way you did, but then when you go to Vince McMahon and you go to shake his hand, bam, you stun him, and that's it.
Yeah.
You maintain who you are. Is what he should have did.
Yes.
The reason, my thing with this whole angle is Cody, for the first time since he's been back in WWE, are the gears behind the scenes starting to turn that, maybe this is a possibility. I can do this. I don't think he's gonna do this, but the fact that they're even teasing this, or they're even making this a possibility, is telling me that they're having conversations about it behind the scenes. Do I think they're gonna? Me personally, I don't think he's gonna do it, which I think would lead into a whole nother type of angle as far as like who Rock would want to be his guy. Because I think I really feel this angle really convolutes a lot of stuff.
Well, it makes
it exciting for me though, because you don't know how it's gonna go.
I mean, yeah, but I feel like, okay, 2 weeks ago, I think we all could agree that we felt that Punk was going to win the Elimination Chamber. It's going to be Punk and Cody at WrestleMania. Like that's what I was looking.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel and just like wonder if this is just like a red herring to just kind of throw everybody off the scent. I don't know. I just, are there possibilities? Sure, but it seems like what Triple H has done over the last couple of years and the long-term storytelling and then the long payoff. This moment doesn't seem to line up with that. Like, to me, if The Rock comes back on, again, I think the biggest mistake they made on Netflix was not making John Cena the ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
You make Cena the ambassador. One, that's going to be his future role after he retires anyways. And then two, that fits perfectly with his character in general. And then on top of it, what he's doing in his final retirement run. To basically have The Rock come back the first time since basically WrestleMania and have him be this like, oh my God, hi crowd. How are you doing? Loves, kisses, mwah. And then all of a sudden, and he's like drinking tequila in the back. And then they have Drew McIntyre, who is supposedly hunting down all the bloodline members, and they're, dabbing it up. And I'm like, what did we, it's just such a fumble from, it just doesn't seem Triple H booking, or it doesn't match. So maybe, again, maybe I'm not seeing something. Maybe this is something that is done, in the coming weeks for WrestleMania, and everything's kind of figured out. I mean, look, we all were flummoxed when The Rock came back and tried to push Cody aside, and everybody was up in arms. And then we had one of the greatest 10 minutes of WrestleMania ever. So I'm trying to stay cautiously optimistic about it. But it just feels weird. The Netflix thing threw it off, and now I feel conflicted and weird about it. Because I loved The Rock in his final boss run last year. It was, in my opinion, it was his best work, ever. Short of
How the World Rock 2003.
Well, right around when Rock was in his infancy of being The Rock, and he had that I Quit match with Mick Foley at the Royal Rumble. and that was final boss moment type of stuff, and that really put him over as a heel even more so. And we hadn't seen that Rock in 20 some years, so to see it to have him just be able to, I don't know, I want final boss Rock back. I don't want this tweener weird Rock. I don't want that. I just want final boss. Like, if you want him to be the evil corporate guy, then be the evil corporate guy. But it doesn't. Something isn't jiving with this, and I don't know what it is. And so I'm hoping that they flesh this out somewhat. And I'm not like, we're not all kind of like, what the F at the end of this.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is what I say. I think the only way you call, I seriously feel like the only way this is a fumble is if The Rock literally doesn't get physical and put his hands on Cody at the Elimination Chamber. I feel like something's going to go down. I really do. And I think, I don't know, I feel like, me personally, I think him cutting that promo the way he did, I'm hoping, and I'm like Flash here, I'm being cautiously optimistic too. I'm hoping with that promo, he's taking the reins off and he's going full bore back hopefully into final boss engage Rock. That's what I'm hoping. And I'm gonna be cautiously optimistic about that too, because I mean, these last few months have been, these weeks or whatever has been kind of like, it's kind of throwing you off a little bit with him, kind of going back into being like, the babyface ambassador, people's champ Rock, and that promo just kind of, I hope that promo, particularly the one line where he called out the fans. the one line he threw at the fan, that was I'm hoping he's kind of going back fully engaged in that. And the press conference was definitely kind of, I wouldn't have done the press conference if I was him. I wouldn't have done it, because you don't need to let the people behind the scenes in like too much like that. You don't need to let them behind the scenes like that. You need to let it, if you're going to go back into fully engaged final boss mode, you need to just let the people watch it and let it play out. But I'm being optimistic about it too, because the promo was just, I mean, it was like, that's why we love the final boss character, because it's Rock at his most sadistic. And this promo was like peak WrestleMania final boss, like the coldness of it, the calmness, how content he was. I mean, if a man's gonna look you dead in your face and say, I want your soul, and say it with just no emotion in his face at all, that's just sociopathic, sadistic, just I mean just craziness.
If they play, if I mean, maybe they're going for a route of where it is almost like, hey, I'm this happy corporate guy, blah blah blah, I'm just here, but then there's this like evil twist to it. Then I guess maybe, but I don't know. The problem, I guess, I would probably have a better feeling about that if that's the route they were going, if they hadn't done the backstage stuff at Netflix. Like what I would have done at Netflix is, if you wanted to really do The Rock as the ambassador on Netflix, I would have had him walk out, do his shtick as the ambassador and the corporate Rock, part of the TKO board, then have him go back and then, hugging everybody, dabbing everybody, and then going up to Cody and wanting to share tequila. But all of them act like uncomfortable about it. Like because he's part of the board, you feel like you're forced to comply, but you feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody was like, what's up, dude? And it's just like, it ruined Again, it ruined the kayfabe. It just did. Champ, you were going to say something. I'm sorry. What were you going to say, buddy?
No, I'm agreeing. It kind of looks like crazy. It's kind of like what the I don't know. It's kind of like I get what they're trying to do. I get what they're trying to do, to BRF's point. But the thing is, you know, you can't break kayfabe too much, bro. Like,
no,
it's kind of like, I hate to say ignorance is bliss. I kind of hate that term, but yeah,
it's
like,
true.
It's like, come on, I'm talking about, especially with wrestling. You gotta like, bro, we need that kayfabe, bro. Stop. Like, you're going too far. It's like, bro, is this gonna be wrestling or a reality TV show? Like, come on, man. We gotta get it. We gotta get kayfabe back, man. And that's something that I'm just like, what are you doing? Like,
it's
why those guys is a master plan, but it's like, I don't really like the way this is going. It's kind of like you taking the cake. It's kind of like you're taking the cake out of the box. You're not adding the milk as of yet. You're just putting it in the stove. It's like, what the hell are you doing? You ain't even added the Pam yet.
Yeah, it just feels. It's why. So, like, you talk about kayfabe. Like, you go back to what Punk and Drew McIntyre did this past summer and in the fall. Like, you believed that they hated each other. Like, you believed it was that serious, and then they ended it with that Hell in the Cell match, which is one of those brutal Hell in the Cell matches we'd had in a long time. And it's just like, I know they don't actually hate each other. You know, I know it, but it's like going to a Mission Impossible movie or a James Bond movie. I don't need Daniel Craig all of a sudden like breaking the fourth wall and just going, "Hi guys, I just want to let you know that I love playing as part of James Bond, and it's been a fantastic honor." And then all of a sudden, you know, shaken, not stirred. And you're just like, wait, no, wait, you just took me out of the movie. Like, you just took me out of the moment. And
in other words, you don't want this to be you want this to be real kayfabe, not a Deadpool movie. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm cool with Deadpool because that's his character.
Yeah.
Like, it's in a comedic tone. This is just weird. Here's the other part of it too that I don't understand is up until Netflix, the typical ambassador that came out and made announcements was Triple H. And honestly, I thought he was flipping great at it. Why do you need anybody else? Like, do you have to have The Rock out there, you know, as an ambassador? Again, you have John Cena. I don't, you know, I mean, you could drag anybody back to be an ambassador for a night except for Hulk Hogan. But other than that, we don't want to do that again.
No, we don't.
We don't want to do that again.
But
you can bring back. Why is everybody booing me?
Did you see that? Did you see the NXT crowd the other night when Booker T was making his entrance before the show?
No.
It was there was a section of him where he was making his entrance, was saying exactly that. Hulk Hogan, we coming for you to his beat of his song, to the beat of his song.
But I just don't. I don't know. I don't like this whole push that he's the ambassador. Here's the other part too. He's barely around. Like, you're not able to establish this character because he's not around. Like, that was the thing with Vince when he was the evil corporate boss. He was on Monday Night Raw every week. You know, and Rock pops his head in every 6 months, and it's like, dude, like, well, okay, what's up, champ?
No, I'm impersonating you, but when you say he popped out, it's kind of like I hate to compare anybody to somebody, but what's up, Whit? But K-Whit, what's going on, brother? But I gotta just say this real quick, man. It's kind of like, it's not giving Vince McMahon. It's kind of giving WCW powers that be type of thing.
Yes.
I ain't really feeling it. It's just like,
no.
It's kind of like when Russo went backstage, the powers that be, like, bro, like, what the hell is this? Like,
wait, what is this? Is this Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Like, what is going on?
Like, bro, you know, and plus with Russo, it really wasn't believable. With Vince, although he was the boss, he wore a suit. At least Vince was. I think Vince like 6'4", 6'5". I can actually believe.
And a bodybuilder.
Yeah, I can actually believe he could whoop somebody. I didn't believe for a second Vince Russo. I didn't believe for a second could whoop my dog. So I mean,
no. Well, that and the other part of it, with everything that's come out about Vince McMahon, like he was just playing himself essentially. So you know, yeah. So like, and Russo, yeah, like Russo is one of those people you just like, dude, I
get out of here,
slap the piss out of you, and not like with a blindfold on, and I'm not afraid of you. It just, yeah, it. And then it's not like The Rock's not intimidating, but it was just weird. Like he just went from, like, you know, like my buddy Ryan talked about, he mentioned, he just went from like in the middle of the promo from like heel to baby face. And then it just went like, I want your soul. And then he just started to like tickle Cody Rhodes' neck. And it was just odd. I don't know. It was just like, to me, what I would have done if you're going to do it that way, he didn't have to go all like weird about it. Like all you had to do is like, I want your soul. And then just like put a finger in his chest, dropped the mic and walked out. I just, okay, I'll put it this way. Dwayne Johnson, I like some of his movies, but let's be honest, he's not the greatest actor. Okay?
Yeah.
Great on the mic. He can be evil final boss Rock, which we've seen before, and he can be, you know, The Rock. But his range, like he doesn't have the range like Batista has when it comes to acting. Like nowhere close. And I think he's trying something, and it's
ruining it.
It's weird. So again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they flesh this out. Let's see what happens on Saturday at Elimination Chamber. But so, you know, let's see.
Hey man, look, I agree that it's weird too, but hey, knowing Triple H, knowing the minds behind the WWE, they know what they're doing. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this turns out. It's gonna be very interesting to see how this turns out. Let's move into some football, man. Now we all know there's a great player that's available this coming summer. He's already requested a trade. The NFL draft is just around the corner. So I gotta ask y'all this. Myles Garrett sweepstakes. Where would you like to see him go? I'm gonna go first on this one. San Francisco. Him and Joey Bosa. Let's just go all in. You saw the formula for stopping and beating Patrick Mahomes. You already saw it. So go ahead, get Myles Garrett. He's 29 years old. You already have another defensive player of the year on the opposite side of him, that being in Nick Bosa. Go ahead and make that trade. And look, since you're trying to unload Deebo Samuels, go ahead and throw him in the mix. So hey, we'll trade you a first and a third round plus Deebo Samuels and for Myles Garrett. And trade for him and see what you can get. It's not like you don't have another wide receiver that's capable of replacing Deebo. You already have Ricky Pearsall, who, although he got pew-pewed in the chest, had a decent season to be a rookie. I mean, this guy literally got pew-pewed in the chest and came out here and had a decent season. So he proved that he could play. You have Brandon Ayuk, however much time he has left, and you still have George Kittle. And, you know, depending on how much they can get that running game back off the ground, you're going to have at least a decent to a great running game. Go ahead and make that trade. The quest for 6, go all in, and just let that be that, because right now your Super Bowl window is closing. Some of these players are not going to be under contract for the next few years. I mean, you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy at a certain point. I think the year after this one, you're going to have to pay him. So it's best to go all in now before you start losing a lot of these great players. So I think the San Francisco 49ers should definitely go in and try to get Myles Garrett and just go, and like I said, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Go ahead, say, hey, call up Cleveland, say, hey, we'll trade you Deebo Samuels, a first and a third for Myles Garrett. Bring him on in. And there's your championship, and that's the completion of your championship puzzle right there. Plus, you just unloaded Debo. But what says you guys? Whoever wants to go next?
BRF, you go, dude.
Okay. Alrighty. So, all right. So, the biased fan in me would love to see him go to Atlanta. The biased fan in me would love to see them go to Atlanta. The problem with that thinking is, I don't think we don't have the assets to get them, and I don't think. And you're looking at like probably the two players we may have that's available in the trade. Why would Cleveland want to acquire Kyle Pitts when they already have David Njoku, who's already like one of the better tight ends in the league? So you don't need to go that route. Kirk Cousins, is he damaged goods? We don't know. We don't know. So if I'm gonna take my unbiased hat off for a minute, I would love to see him go to Washington. I would love to see him go to Washington, just because he's still only 29 years old, and I feel like Washington is like that defense just sorely lacks a legit elite, just dominant force rushing the passer. I mean, they got a bunch of guys that can get to the quarterback and get sacks, but they need that one guy that really stands out and can kind of be that driving force for a team that's up and coming and has really just made progress a lot sooner than a lot of people were anticipating in the Washington Commanders. So I'll say this though, I do not want to see him go to the Philadelphia Eagles. That's just overkill on overkill right there if he goes to Philly. And they're going to be and the crazy thing is they're going to be in the mix for him. But if you're looking at for being a building block for an up and coming squad, I would love to see him go to Washington. I mean, that core of him, Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin. That core right there alone is that can, with Myles Garrett being 29 and Terry McLaurin still being young, that can probably at least get you through the next 4 to 5 years with these guys being, with Jaden Daniels not even sniffing his prime yet, and Terry McLaurin and Myles Garrett basically in the prime of their careers. So me personally, if I just had to drop him in a spot, I would love to see him join the Washington Commanders.
To your point, Philadelphia does have $13 million in cap space. They do have $13 million in cap space available. So, to your point, that would kind of be overkill. But you have to ask yourself this: bless you.
Thank you.
How ready is Nakobe Dean going to be next year? And you got to ask yourself this, and he wasn't a contract yet this year too, right?
Myles Garrett?
I'm talking about Nakobe Dean.
Oh.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself how ready that Nakobe Dean is going to be. Not to mention, Nolan Smith, he played that whole Super Bowl with a torn tricep muscle. You got to ask yourself, are those guys going to be ready? And they're about to lose Brandon Graham. He's about to retire.
And they're probably about to lose Josh Sweat too.
Yeah, and they're probably about to lose Josh Sweat. So would it really be overkill, or are they just replacing guys that they're losing at this point? Because you don't know who's going to be ready, who's not going to be ready. So another team before Flash goes, hey, if you're Chicago, you might want to consider getting them as well. You might want to, because put somebody the opposite of Montez Sweat. So, put somebody the opposite of Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat, Myles Garrett, and then you got Jalen Johnson on the outside, man in the corner. I mean, that's a recipe for good football. You got to steer up this defense, because guess what? Although Ben Johnson's your coach, you can't have all this offense and no defense. I mean, you see where that gets you when you talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. So those are two places I think that should really, really help. I think that San Francisco and Chicago. But Flash, what says you? Because I know you don't want to see him go to Chicago. Y'all got to see him for twice a year.
No. Right now, out of any team in the NFL, where would he make the biggest impact?
New England.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Ooh.
I agree.
Now, whether they would trade it within the division, probably not. But if I'm Cincinnati and all you need is a little bit better defense to be a Super Bowl contender, and re-sign Chase and Higgins, at least Chase. You go get him. Now, Cleveland's front office has done dumber things than trading somebody like that within the division. So it's why I'm bringing it up, because Cleveland isn't past themselves from doing something stupid. So if I'm Cincinnati, that's where I go. They have 51 million, 52 million in cap space.
Mm-hmm.
I know they got to re-sign Chase and Higgins, but that you can do anything with contracts to make it work. I'm not sure when it comes to the draft capital of what they have, but let me look real quick what they have with the draft capital. They got one. They basically have a normal draft, but so you'd have to, trade 2 1s, whatever for them. But honestly, right now, like besides O-line, which they always need O-line, dude, if I'm Cincinnati, I go get him. You throw him on the other side of Joey B in that offense, that you are an instant Super Bowl contender in the AFC. Instant.
Okay. Now, I'm piggybacking on because Chosen League is over on Instagram, and he was saying that a team that wants to win is the Lions, the Commanders, Ravens, or Steelers. I don't really see the Steelers going all in for them. They don't really make trades like that. The Steelers don't.
No.
I haven't really seen them make a lot of big trades. But as far as the Ravens, I don't think they want to add to that already scary defense, because although that defense was up and down at times this year, that defense was still top 10 overall.
It's very young too, so they're going to have a lot of re-signings coming up as well.
Yes, indeed. And but lucky for them, they've already signed Justin Metaduke, and they signed one of their best pass rusher. But they definitely need a replacement for Javion Clowney, who accounted for 9 sacks last year. So I mean, that would be good. But for me, I have to say Chicago. I have to say Chicago or San Francisco. I don't really say my boy K Witt in the comment. I thought we were friends. He's a huge shout out to Rick Room Sports, by the way, man. Huge, good show, best intro and podcast, man. You gotta go check that show out. But as far as trading, I don't think they made a lot of trades in recent memory that I can really think of, other than Mika Fitzpatrick. I think they made a trade for him. But other than that, it's just like I haven't really seen the Pittsburgh Steelers made a lot of big, huge trades, over the course of the years. And shout out to PSP, like, subscribe. Dallas champ needs to be the next year. We're going to talk about Dallas next, but I really think that it needs to be either San Francisco or Chicago. Now, to Flash's point, I think that would be a hell of a trade. Him and Hendricks on the same defense, that would be very. The only question is, who do you give up in order to get him? That would be interesting. I mean, you'd have to give up draft capital. That's basically what they have. I don't know if Myles Garrett has a no trade clause. I mean, because you're assuming he's going to want to go to a contender. Mm-hmm.
So. Because then it would, he could go to New England, he could go here, he could go there, but he's going to want to go to a place where he's going to win. So it kind of limits it. I just like the impact that it would make in Cincinnati more so than any place else, in my opinion. I don't think it's Green Bay. He's been linked to Green Bay since last year. I think Green Bay is more in the Max Crosby realm. Because there have been talk of them adding one of these two guys. I will say though, they have a lot of young talent, and they have a lot of and they have draft capital, so they have young players that they could trade in almost like an NBA type or an MLB type package for someone like Myles Garrett. So or Max Crosby. So just kind of why. I mean, I think Green Bay is going to be involved in that. Both of those players heavily. Plus, here's the other part too. Now, he changed his tune recently, but Jair Alexander at the end of the year said he wanted out. Mm-hmm. Don't be shocked if it's like a Jair Alexander for Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, and Green Bay throws in like a 3 or something like that. So because Alexander's a top flight corner, like let's make no mistake. He's like the only corner in the league that can literally go toe to toe with Justin Jefferson. So just watch out for Green Bay. And that's not me being a homer. There have been links to that since, like I said, last year.
Quick question for you, Flash. If y'all were to get Myles Garrett, can he be the Reggie White to y'all Super Bowl run, much like Reggie was back in '96? Can he be the Reggie White? Can he be the Reggie White of this generation for you guys?
Yes, and I've been, my big thing is I and this is the thing that I argued I think last week on the podcast, where I forgot who chimed in but said that I think was it Leaf?
Yeah, said
that we needed. We asked about, or they were talking about a number one wide receiver. I'm like, no, I want to go get a defensive. Please get me somebody that offensive coordinators are sweating the night before.
Mm-hmm.
The impact of what Myles Garrett could make on that defense and how young that defense is. Oh, as long as you don't trade away the farm or trade anybody massive, like you could get away with trading Jair because you could probably draft a young kid and their secondary is good enough to hold up.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, he wasn't healthy all last year, anyways.
No.
So, yes, I do think that it would be that massive of an impact just because that defense is so young. And to have somebody as big of a name to come and to walk in there as Myles Garrett, yeah.
I would say this on like as far as like the package Green Bay could give up for like a Myles Garrett. This is what I said, like a Jair Alexander for me is probably like a very realistic possibility. And what you're talking about in the realm of far as like what you could give up for him. Now, if it was like I'll be real. I'm having conversations with that GM. If it's like a Quay Walker or Rashawn Gary, like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Jair Alexander, yeah, just because I feel like he don't want to be there no more. But if you have to include somebody like a Rashawn Gary to get him, nah, I wouldn't do that.
PSP's right. So PSP said that Love has to protect the ball better, which is true. And guys have to stay healthy. I don't think they need to get another. You could draft another DB to move on from Jair. The amount of just adding Garrett will improve your secondary.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be a 1-for-1. It's like how a top flight corner will improve your pass rush. Having Myles Garrett and Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark and now you have a guy. That's a scary front seven all of a sudden.
Yes.
And now
you compared it to Reggie White.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt it, but
no, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but that's the reason why I compare him to Reggie White. Because remember, before Reggie White got there, y'all had the Gravedigger, Gilbert, Gravedigger Gilbert. Then you had Sean Jones, who was an excellent pass rusher as well. You remember Sean Jones, right?
Oh, absolutely. I met Sean Jones. Yeah.
Oh, for real? Damn.
Yeah.
He that big in real life?
What?
He that big in real life? That dude.
Yeah, I was at a bar called Club Rain years ago. This was back when it was Gilbert Brown, Santana Dotson, Sean Jones, and they were all in the bar, all three of them. And yes, they are as big as
Nice. But yeah, I think that because remember before that the pass rush was good with Gilbert, the Gravedigger. Yep. And I used to love that celebration, by the way. He used to act like he was digging the grave, and then the Gravedigger. But I used to love him and Sean Jones, and then when they brought in Reggie White, that just put him over the top. And that's the reason why I compared, not saying that Myles Garrett is better than Reggie White, but could he be that level of impact for them as far as Green Bay, like Reggie White was back when he went there in free agency in '94. So,
yeah. Yep, I agree.
7-11. Nice, PSP. We appreciate you, brother. Go follow PSP, by the way. But, I think that would be good. Anything you guys want to add? That was a hell of a segment.
I think I pretty much covered all that.
Yeah.
Real quick point. I saw PSP post something about don't draft a DB, get someone in free agency. You add Will Johnson to this defense, yeah. They would if they would have just look if they would have drafted Will Johnson. Oh no, oh yeah, I would be ecstatic if I'm Green Bay. If I can draft a Will Johnson out of Michigan, I'd be ecstatic.
All right. We're gonna stay with the pass rushers for this next segment. And look, and this one is gonna be, maybe just as good, but just a hair backwards. Like Myles Garrett is A, but this guy's 1A. You gotta ask yourself this question because the Cowboys cap situation is toe up from the floor up, make you want to throw up from the door up at this point. So the cap situation is not that good. Like BRF has said on several occasions, we thought that the odd man out was going to end up being CeeDee Lamb because you didn't want to be without your quarterback and you didn't want to be without your premier pass rusher. Come to find out, it's looking like it's going to be Micah Parsons. So you got to ask yourself this question. Number one, does Parsons leave the Cowboys via trade? And it's now the perfect time for the Cowboys to trade him while they still got leverage. Because after this season is over, you no longer have any leverage. You don't have any. So he's going to walk. He's an unrestricted free agent. So is it time for you to just go ahead and say, look, we can't pay him this money. The draft is coming up. We got a better chance of developing a young pass rusher at this point in time. And we just got to cut our losses at this point because we're not going to be able to sign him, and we don't want him to get away for free. Whoever wants to go first, because I got my own assessment about it, but I want to hear somebody else's at this moment in time.
I think you have to now. While you can probably get something for him. Yeah, it's crazy how he's ending up being the odd man out on this because the edge and defensive ends and outside linebackers who can like really get after the quarterback and can make that quick of an impact to basically disrupt the game. As much of a premium has been put on them, I might as well say the last decade and a half, with the way the passing game is just really elevated. The fact that Micah Parsons is probably going to be the odd one out is crazy to me. It's crazy to me. So I think he's gonna get traded. And if I'm Dallas, I think you have to where you can bring back, if nothing else, some draft, a decent haul in draft capital, maybe a starting level player, depending on who's the team that you're kind of engaging with as far as trading for. And it's just it's crazy because I like I said, I remember when we did this topic. I mean, I like you said, I thought CeeDee Lamb was going to be the odd one out.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like with the wide receiver position nowadays, I think you can go by committee, and if you have a quarterback that's good enough to kind of utilize the whole field, utilize all his targets, I mean, and as long as you're not turning the ball over, you can still be a successful offense. So yeah, I think yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And losing Zach Martin, I think at this point it's crazy. Like the only thing that you're really not having to retool to blow up is your court.
All right, here's the thing. We're talking as if Dallas has a smart front office.
Oh, I know they don't.
What they should do is, yes, trade him for draft capital so they can rebuild. Because Dak Prescott's cap hit is $89 million this year. Ouch.
Could you rewind that back to me one more time, please?
His cap hit. Now I'm on sportstrack.com.
Uh-huh.
His cap hit for 2025 is $89,896,666.
Damn.
He takes up 32.69% of the cap.
You have no choice but to trade Michael Parsons at this point.
Now, they could restructure, obviously, which is probably – here's what they should do. They should trade Micah Parsons, Micah Parsons, whatever. Should trade him for draft capital to fill holes and make this team better. Okay, offensive line, yeah, Zach Martin's, it's a huge blow. I was shocked by that, although playing for that team, I'm not surprised. But I think what they're going to do, they're literally going to restructure contracts and then re-sign them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to put themselves in more – they're going to rob Peter to pay Paul. They won't draft it. They're just going to, and that's what they do. It's just what they do. And that's what's going to happen. I'd be willing to make a bet on it because I just think because it's not a smart front office. In all actuality, they should have blown this whole team up. I think we talked about it all year. I think we talked about it as soon as the season ended. That reality is they should have just blown the whole thing up. So, I mean, like, it looks like they're like 3 steps short of being the Cleveland Browns, and that's saying something. So, they're going to do something stupid. So, we'll see. If they're going to do something smart, you trade him now. You trade him to Pittsburgh, or you can't if San Francisco can't trade for Garrett or Crosby, whoever's all in this like pass rusher sweepstakes right now, which in my opinion would be San Francisco, Philly, Green Bay,
or even Baltimore,
probably Detroit, Cincinnati, where you need to do something, but I just have a feeling that it's not going to happen. So I saw one idea of somebody of trading Micah Parsons to Cincinnati for T. Higgins, but you still have to pay T. Higgins, so that doesn't make any sense either. They're going to do something dumb, and I'm waiting for it so I can sit back and laugh.
If you really want me to be honest, what Dallas needs to do, they need to trade him to Pittsburgh. They need to trade him to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh is all in on defense at this point. And guess what? Hey, if you want to sign another defensive player rather than shearing up your offense, guess what? I'll be more than happy to give them to you. So, and look, I'm just going to be real. If I'm Dallas, here's what I'm doing. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a very disgruntled receiver on their hands by the name of George Pickens. You need a second receiver outside of CeeDee Lamb. We'll give you Parsons for George Pickens in the first-round pick.
That's not bad. I'm looking at Pittsburgh's roster right now. They have no quarterback.
They don't.
They don't have anybody. I thought they had Justin Fields at least. He's not even on the roster.
No, the only quarterback that they have on the roster, he's a journeyman quarterback. But, yeah, they don't have a quarterback at this point. Don't be surprised if they take a shot at Jackson Dart. But, if I'm Dallas, I'm calling Pittsburgh and say, hey, we'll give you Micah for George Pickens and first-round pick. Or we'll give you Micah for George Pickens, Dwayne Washington, and a second-round pick. Because they need a tight end, too.
Trade him to Atlanta, we'll give them Kyle Pitts.
That was what I was going to, but great minds think alike. Or either I'm like, okay, we'll give you that. Atlanta will give you Parsons for Kyle Pitts, a first-round pick, maybe even if you throw in a fourth. But that's the only way out at this point. That's the only way out because you're not going to be able to pay him And can you imagine? Look, the last thing that you need is for him to become a free agent and go to Philadelphia, or for him to become a free agent and go to Washington.
Yeah,
that's the last thing that you need right about now. You can let him go to San Francisco. That's not in your division, but you do not need Parsons to become a free agent and go to either Philadelphia or Washington at this point.
Or Kansas City. That man has said on this podcast if he was a free agent, he would sign with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Here, that's a lot of, that's more, in the great words of Bon Phillips, that's more hell on us than a little bit. But you got to get him out of that division, and you got to get him out of your conference. You got to get him out of there quick. And hell, if he wants to go to Kansas City, I'll call up Kansas City and see if you want him. Hey, 3 first. The price going to be higher. I want a first, a second, and a third.
Kansas City be willing. Kansas City still trying to win championships. They'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, first, second, and the third. If you want to go to Kansas City, first, second, and the third. If he goes to Pittsburgh, hey, I'll trade you Parsons for George Pickens in the first round pick, and maybe you throw in a 5th. So Dallas got to trade him. I don't know, or either if you don't want another wide receiver outside of CeeDee Lamb, then you got to trade him for a draft haul, because you need a lot. Now, granted, you're going to be able to get. I know that the whole consensus pick is going to be for them. It's going to be Ashton Jeanty, but in reality, you can get a running back in the second, maybe even in the third round, because there's so many coming out. I mean, you can get Cam Scatterboo in the third round and get Quinshawn Jenkins maybe in the second. So you don't have to draft a running back in the first round. I think that'll be exercise your futility. But if you're the Dallas Cowboys, but you got to do something this year in order to make that signing of CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott seem at least smart at this point. Because I think all 3 of us said, look, man, y'all just need to blow this thing up. Start trading them. I wouldn't have re-signed neither one of them on that team. I would have seen how it went that last year under McCarthy, and then look, man, we just gonna blow this thing up and let somebody else decide what they're gonna do. Because right now, you're even with that $2 million, even with $20 million that was added to the cap this month, there's still $2 million over the cap space right now. They ain't got enough money to sign the damn draft picks.
No. Now, again, like I said, you can restructure anybody's deal to free up cap space, but I just don't. Again, the smart move is to trade him.
Yeah,
They won't do it.
So I think that, but like I said, the last thing that you need is for him to become a free agent next year and then go to Philadelphia, because that's going to bite you in the behind more than a piranha on a Saturday night in the pool. So it's going to be real.
What kind of pools you swimming in?
Telling you.
A cesspool. But a cesspool. So look, let's stay in the NFC East, man. Look, there's been a lot of talk, as of lately about Jalen Hurts and him not getting the credit that he deserves. And, people are saying that, that team around him is, the reason why he was able to win. And I even posted a video last night of how Joe Burrow got more credit for losing a Super Bowl than Jalen Hurts did for winning a Super Bowl. And finally, somebody slaying the dragon in the Super Bowl outside of the greatest of all time. So you gotta ask this: do y'all think that other quarterbacks have gotten credit for losing more than Jalen Hurts have for winning?
No. I mean, as good as he played in that Super Bowl, and he played great, he outplayed Mahomes, and I'm not taking it to what that defense is what should have gotten the MVP. I'm okay with Hurts getting the MVP. He played great. but that defense was unreal. And so I think he deserves the credit because he outplayed the greatest quarterback of this generation. So I think he's getting just the credit that's needed. I don't think he's getting undercredited. I mean, we just had a conversation last week that he's arguably top 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, what more? When you've ascended to top 5 status, what more credit do you need? We're not putting you in the top 2 yet. We're not putting you in like, you're not the GOAT status. So what credit is needed at this point that he's not getting? I guess that's my bigger question. I guess it's my question to a question. What's the credit that he's not getting? In your guy, if you guys feel differently than I do.
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't feel different. I mean, I feel, see, I didn't have a problem him winning the MVP. I mean, 295 yards from scrimmage, his passing and his rushing, and then the three total touchdowns. I mean, he played his butt off, and he definitely deserved to get the MVP. I mean, he deserved to get it. Now, when you're pretty much averaging, like, when your average field position is practically in the 30s because of your defense getting the Kansas City Chiefs off the field and giving you pristine field position to where you can operate your offense to the fullest potential, to where you can do whatever you want. And I mean, it's a luxury to have. As far as giving quarterbacks more credit for losing, no, because I look at we look at Joe Burrow and his Super Bowl run, and I mean, let's be honest, in a couple of those games, even though the defense wasn't the greatest, defense did kind of bail him out getting to the Super Bowl that run. So can't really say him. I mean, a lot of this discourse as far as Jalen Hurts, why some people are calling him the second best quarterback in the league, it's because of what he's done to Patrick Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls. Basically outplayed him both times.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if anything, to a certain extent, to call him the second best, for some people to even call him the second best quarterback in the league, they're giving him a little too much. Just because they're looking at, hey, you've competed with Patrick Mahomes twice and you've outplayed him twice. I'm like, well, Eli Manning beat Tom Brady twice, and I promise you, Eli Manning was really never a top 10 quarterback for his entire career. Maybe once was he remotely a top 10 quarterback. So him beating Tom Brady twice didn't really elevate him the way these 2 performances in the Super Bowls are elevating Jalen Hurts to top 2 status to some people. And we were talking about this last night. I think this put him in that second tier. Because it's like I said, if Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow are the Mount Rushmore, are the top tier, Jalen Hurts is in that Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert tier. I feel like those are the next 3. Order them however you want them. I feel like they're the next 3. And then
I want to play devil's advocate a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Jalen Hurts has, so BSP brought up a good point. Is he getting the Russell Wilson treatment how he was in Seattle? Sort of, but I kind of don't think so because Russell Wilson, when they won that Super Bowl, still wasn't like borderline MVP Russell Wilson yet. Like, he wasn't quite there yet as that type of quarterback yet. But if any other quarterback, if Joe, why isn't he in the top tier?
To be honest, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just saying, because if he's one of 2 quarterbacks in the league that can outplay Mahomes toe-to-toe in a game, he's now I mean, honestly, he should have won 2 Super Bowls at this point, but it has won one. Almost beat a way better Kansas City team the first time. And Philly's been, a top 3 seed ever since he's been the starter, ish, at least the last like 3 to 4 years. Why isn't he in there?
Here's what I think. If y'all will allow me, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think when people start talking about elite quarterbacks, they want to see. Man, I think it's moving the goalposts just a little bit. Because when you win, I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. You could throw for 100 yards a game, but if your team wins, I mean, hey, you've done enough in order to make sure that your team win, no matter whether you win by an inch or a mile. But I think people are waiting for that super season like they were waiting for with Lamar. Because although Lamar had won the MVP twice, this year was his super season, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts hasn't had that one season where it's just lights out. Now, his last run and granted, people are still, even when he made the Super Bowl the first time, people were talking about, well, that was the easiest path to the Super Bowl ever. Because remember, Brock Purdy got hurt in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I remember.
Well, people were saying that people have been saying, well, he had an easy path to the first Super Bowl that he had. But the thing is, he was an MVP candidate in that season up until he got hurt. But the thing is, for people to consider you elite, they want to see you in those all-pro and MVP conversations yearly.
That's
when you
true.
look at Joe Burrow, you see him, as long as he's healthy, you see him in those conversations every year.
Yep.
When you see Lamar Jackson, as long as he's healthy, you see him in those conversations of being the best quarterback in the league every year. Although these last 2 years have not been his best statistically, Patrick Mahomes, you're hearing him in this conversation every year. Josh Allen, he just won the MVP, but you're hearing him in conversations of being the best quarterback every year. When you think about Jalen Hurts, because his style of play is not that pretty, and number one, and number two, his stats don't really knock your socks off. You don't really hear about him as the best quarterback in the league every single year. Sure. That's the thing. You're not hearing that. Nope. And to PSP's point, I think that's why that's why he was saying, well, how is he elite? We just now start hearing about outside of this Super Bowl and that 1 year that he had where he was all pro, second team all pro. You really haven't been hearing where he was the best quarterback in the league. And I think that's the Philly effect. I mean, I really do. I think it's the Philly effect. Although Randall Cunningham had so many great years, he never was considered the best quarterback in the league. Although Donovan McNabb got his team to 5 straight NFC championships and a Super Bowl, he was never considered the best quarterback in the league. Even with Michael Vick in that comeback year, he wasn't considered the best quarterback in the league because of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. So in order for you to be considered elite by the standard of media, talking heads, and among your peers, you have to be in conversations of being the best at your position every single year. Okay. And unfortunately for Jalen Hurts, he has not been in those conversations. That's why a lot of people really don't consider him being elite. Now, for me, is he top 5? Yeah. You doing, look, that's what you're supposed to do.
He's 5 or 6. I agree.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do is win when you have a team of that caliber. Because guess what? And this is no knock on anybody because I'm just going to be real. Lamar Jackson's not winning, and he had the best defense last year statistically in the history of the NFL and the best offense statistically this year in NFL history. He's had 2 back-to-back historic teams in historic season and still hasn't won.
So I've been hearing for years that the quarterback position is supposed to change.
It has.
Okay, but what if he's that change?
What if who's that change?
Hurts. because we talk about Lamar Jackson and how he's changed the game, which I kind of disagree. We've seen quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson before. I always think that's
not at his level. Not at his level.
No, but his offense is tailored right around him. He's the focal point. So I
understand. I get that, but it's the being able to run for 1,000+ yards and still be a 66, 67, 68 completion percentage passer. We ain't seen it to this level.
No, I agree, but has he changed the game?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I look at it this way, I'm looking at Jalen Hurts stats. He's rushed for over 700 yards or 600 yards each year he started, and he's been healthy for every game he started. And he's completed over where did it go? Where am I going? Where did his completion percentage?
I know he completed over 60% of his passes.
Yeah, he's been in like 65, 66, 67% like his whole career.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is Lamar better than Jalen Hurts? Because I just want to make this argument. If you compare their teams and how loaded they are, they're very similar.
Yeah, I said. Yeah, I just got through saying that.
You just got through saying that. And one guy's able to win. The other guy's not. Why? So why do we consider Lamar better than Jalen Hurts? Because he puts up some more stats? Like when the accuracy level is comparable, you could argue that Lamar is a better rusher, but it's not like leaps and bounds. It's not like a huge jump. And when it comes to their efficiency as a passer, now Lamar Jackson has gotten way better over the years. Don't get me wrong, but Hurts is just as efficient of a passer, and honestly makes big throws and big moments that top flight quarterbacks need to do. So why is I know I'm kind of arguing against myself to a certain extent, but why is that? Hurts does everything that Lamar does and wins.
And
this was Jalen Hurts' worst full-time season as a starter. This was Lamar's best.
I know.
Because Jalen Hurts didn't even throw for 3,000 yards this season. He didn't even throw for 20 touchdowns this season.
He didn't need to.
Yeah, but the thing is, to Flash's point, he still won with the team that was constructed around him. Like I said, and I've said this on many of occasions, Derrick Henry is just as good, if not better than Saquon. May not be a factor in the passing game, but he was on the verge of rushing for 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
Then you had Zay Flowers. He may not be A.J. Brown, but he's darn good. That 2 tight end system that they have in Baltimore is impeccable. You have 2 Pro Bowl caliber tight ends.
Yep.
Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews.
One of the better offensive lines in the league.
Yes. Then you have an offensive guru in Todd Monken. He's better than Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Then you get on the defensive side of the ball, you have a Jalen Carter in the form of Justin Medabupe. You have one of the best safeties in the league when it comes to Kyle Hamilton.
And you have and you got John Harbaugh.
Yeah, and you have John Harbaugh, a Hall of Fame coach. He's better than Nick Sirianni, if you ask me. But yeah, you're not winning with that.
So I'm sitting there going, and to PSV's point that Lamar's changed the game. I saw this 25 years ago with Steve Young. Steve Young could have ran for 1,000 yards a year if he wanted to. Steve Young was that good. What?
Probably 1,500 in that damn market.
Yeah. So we've seen this before. It's like when Mahomes was throwing no-look passes. It's like, man, we've never seen this before. And I'm like, what?
We saw that with Sonny Jurgensen.
I live in Green Bay. I watched Brett Favre do it. I watched Aaron Rodgers do it. Like the whole he's changed the game is it's like the GOAT thing. It's such an overblown, overused word that it's like, wait a minute. Okay, like how does he really change the game? Is everybody going and getting a Lamar Jackson? No, nobody's not. Nobody's not. We're not. We're still drafting guys like Joey Burrow and guys like that are pure pocket passers. You know,
you have to, because there aren't that many coming out with that skill set.
The Lamars are.
Yes, you have with his speed, his arm strength, and everything. There aren't many. With the overall package, there aren't many coming out like that, though.
No, I'm not saying that he's not uber talented. Okay, like comparable on his physical stat wise, but what he does on the field, we have seen before.
Saw it Randall. We saw it with Randall Cunningham.
Oh, Randall Cunningham. Like Randall Cunningham to me is still. We saw it with Michael Vick. You know, and if Michael Vick could have stuck his nose in a playbook, probably would be a Hall of Fame quarterback. So I'm just saying. I think again, and now maybe this is me. It's like the GOAT thing. If you're going to be considered the GOAT, you have to clear that person that's at that status already. You have to clear them by far, like way over them. And I just think it's an interesting topic to say, well, they're very comparable when it comes to style of play. Both teams are loaded, and Jalen seems to keep winning and playing well in big moments. Why is Lamar? Because of stats? Is that the only reason why? I mean, PSP said that he says that Jalen Daniels is over Jalen Hurts. Really? Why?
Not after 1 year.
Not after 1 year?
Not after 1 year.
I know there's a little bit of homerism there, so I can understand that.
Whoa. I will say this. The reason why he's probably saying that is not just because he's a homer. Remember, when Jaden Daniels came there, I remember at the beginning of the year, I think all of us was on PSP's podcast, and we was expecting the worst, especially after they traded Dotson.
Well, Flash actually picked him to finish second.
Well, Flash didn't, but a lot of us expected the worst. I know I did, especially after they traded Dotson. I remember Flash saying that they was going to stay the second in their division. That was his hottest take. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? But I know for a lot of us, we didn't really think it was going so well. Like I said, especially after they traded Dotson. But for him to come in and you didn't have, outside of Scary Terry and Brian Robinson, there really wasn't a lot. Wasn't really anything. It was like, we'll be surprised if they win 3 to 4 games. And then there was some questions about his size and things of that nature. So for him, when you think about the Washington Commanders, you think about Jaden Daniels. That's the first thing you think about. So to PSP's point, and speaking of him, there he is.
What's up, fellas? How y'all doing?
What's going on?
Good, man. Yeah, the reason why I say I have Jaden Daniels over Jalen Hurts is because although it's 1 year, I've seen Jaden Daniels in much less different circumstances than Jalen Hurts. And for him to get this far, mind you, and again, prior to the draft, I actually had Drake May. I actually wanted the Commanders to draft Drake May out of North Carolina, then Jaden Daniels. My concern with Jaden Daniels from day one was his size, his weight. Could he last in the NFL? Because remember, we had RG3 when we drafted him with the number 2 overall pick. I believe Jaden Daniels, because RG3, he was a skinny dude coming out of Baylor, and to Champ's point, quarterback can't throw behind his back. Look, last year we drafted Sam Howell, and he was sacked a lot of times when he was the starter. So if Jaden Daniels behind that offensive line, imagine how is it going to be for him. I believe Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback. Yes, I believe he's better than Jalen Hurts because of the circumstances, how he was able to get Washington this far. Plus, as good as Byron Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler are, when healthy, they're no Saquon. Outside of Terry McLaurin, can you name another wide receiver that is equal or comparable from Washington to AJ and Devontae? Plus, our defense is nowhere near Philadelphia. And the reason why we lost that game against Philadelphia is because Philly obviously was the better team. They were at match and also situational football. It's not like Jaden Daniels played as awful like Mahomes did in the Super Bowl. I just believe, and again, I want to be very careful when I say this about Jalen Hurts. I think he's top 10. I think he's a good enough quarterback. I believe if you can put the right situation around him, give him some offensive line, give him some weapons and stuff, he will be just fine. I don't consider him elite because when I look at the other quarterbacks, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, Herbert, he's not as asked to do as much compared to those other quarterbacks. I still think Hurts is good enough, and I think he has changed, and I think he's changed the perception. Because remember, after Alabama, it was over for him because they moved on. They went with Tua. He went to Oklahoma for a year with Lincoln Riley, had a productive season, was the runner-up for the Heisman. I think and also in Jalen Hurts' credit, he changed the narrative for Philadelphia because it was supposed to be Carson Wentz's team. It was supposed to be Carson Wentz's team because had it not been for injury, Carson Wentz would have won the league MVP in 2017. Jalen Hurts, I think it will be good. I have Mahomes over him. I have Burrow over him. I have Allen, Lamar, Herbert. I have Jaden Daniels. I have CJ Stroud over him. And
really?
I do. I really do.
He's just outplayed the best quarterback in the league twice in a Super Bowl.
I understand that, Flash, but at the same time, to BRF's point, would you still put Eli Manning over Tom Brady? And he outplayed him in 2 Super Bowls.
No, but Eli was throwing as many picks as he was touchdowns. And it's not, let's not act like all of a sudden Eli was a terrible regular season quarterback and had 2 postseason runs where he made a couple lucky throws in the Super Bowl to beat the New England Patriots. So let's not act like it's not like Eli really outplayed Tom Brady in those Super Bowls. Like Jalen Hurts went toe to toe. Let's go back to the first Super Bowl against Kansas City. Okay, it wasn't like he was like, I threw for 196 and I scampered for a touchdown and I just played efficient ball. That dude threw for like 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick. It was one crappy call away from beating a far superior Chiefs team at that point. Then a couple years later, now he goes and outplays them again. Yes, the defense played lights out. I feel like the defense probably should have been the MVP or at least somebody, but it's not like he wasn't a deserved MVP at all. He has been a well above 60% completion percentage. He has had his team in the top 3 when it comes to the seeds every single year. They've been winning the division pretty much every single year. He's only 26 years old. And honest to God, as much as I love TJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels, they're not stiffing his balls right now. At all. I don't. Again, this goes to the guy that keeps told no that he's not good enough keeps winning. That kind of reminds me of a special somebody up in the New England area that kept getting told no all the time, and just kept beating, including best regular season quarterback or the best quarterback in the league right now, Patrick Mahomes. He keeps beating him.
I understand that, and I get all of that, Flash. But let me ask you something. Josh Allen is 0-4 against Mahomes in the playoffs. That being said, you would still take Allen over Hurts.
At this point, after this postseason, it's why I posted the question. Maybe I'm kind of changing my tune right now. Maybe he's not getting the credit he deserves. Because if anybody else did this, they would be in the top 3. Why isn't he better than Lamar? It doesn't make any sense.
I just think with Lamar, and also, and you look at the season, that yes, Lamar did have Derrick Henry, and yes, Derrick Henry had a great season, almost 2,000 yards rushing. But let's not act as if Lamar Jackson didn't carry his load. This is the first time we saw career highs for him as far as passing yards, passing touchdowns. Heck, had it not been for the criteria, heck, we thought Lamar Jackson, even champ at BRF said MV3. And I made the argument for Josh Allen prior to the MVP, that he should win it. Because again, first year without, again, Buffalo, they were still expected to win the division. And if you take out Josh Allen out the equation, how is Buffalo going to be? It was supposed to be Aaron Rodgers' year for the AFC East, because you're coming off the ruptured Achilles, even at 40 years old. They've surrounded you with a loaded roster. They gave you Devontae Adams. You had a defense. You had everything to go in your favor, and you still couldn't even get the job done, which is why for Aaron Rodgers, I think he should retire, but that's a story for another day. But with Josh Allen, the knock on him has been turnovers. He did an amazing job taking care of the football. Even though they had James Cook running the football, he still gave you ability with his legs as far as his running ability. The Rams game, the Bills game, giving the Kansas City Chiefs their first loss of the season, giving Detroit their first loss of the season since week 2. And also as a passer, I just think Allen, despite his flaws despite his flaws from time to time with his turnovers, I just think he just does a better job at elevating his team. I feel like I'm hating on Jalen Hurts, and I'm not, but I just don't. I just think he's a good enough quarterback. I just have him top 10. But just because you beat Patrick Mahomes, just because of the playoff success, I'm not going to necessarily call you top 5 as of yet. I need to see more. The beauty of it is he's only 26.
How is CJ Stroud over him?
I just think CJ is just a better passer, a far better passer than Jalen Hurts is. And even though Hurts is a better athlete, let's not act as if CJ is shabby as an athlete. And I think with Jaden Daniels, like I said before, despite 1 year, I think he has more ability as a passer than Jalen Hurts. I've seen him do it with far less circumstances around him. I think what he has done for Washington to elevate this team, and plus, Chip, you always say it yourself, quarterback can't throw behind his back. Other than Sam Cosmi of our Washington Commanders, can you name anyone else from the Washington Commanders offensive line that stands out to you?
No, you got a bunch of champs out there.
But I have Jalen Hurts. I have somewhere around the 8-ish. I have him at least 8.
Yeah, I just don't. We were saying last year Jordan Love was the second coming, that he was going to take out Mahomes. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Daniel. He's going to be a great quarterback. This is 1 year. Like, now we have Phil. So at the end of the day, what's the goal at the end of the year for every team, or at the beginning of the year for every single team? So win a Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts should have won 2, didn't win the first one, that's fine. Whatever. Ian Flash is great. That's cute. Awesome. Now you go be cute and flashy. Lamar, you go do rolls and stuff like that. And then when it matters most, then you shit the bed. I don't want a quarterback that does that. So if I'm going to pick a quarterback, I'm going to go, I don't want the guy that's going to crap the bed. So I want the guy that's going to get me into the Super Bowl. And that's where it's like, we're at the point where it's like, I think he's not getting credit.
I hear what you're saying, Flash, but at the same time, if we're going to use that argument, Peyton Manning wasn't top 5 after 2002.
Right.
I mean, at some point, we have to look at the peaks and valleys of these quarterbacks and how they play, and we have to look at these quarterbacks and how they peak. I mean, I understand your playoff success. I get that, but even still, as a whole, even though Jalen Hurts has been a really good quarterback, when you look at the Mahomes and the Allens and the Lamars and the Joe Burrows of the world, he has not peaked to the level overall, just individual play as any of those players. I get the playoffs. I get the playoff success, but he still hasn't peaked individually to those players.
Joe Montana never peaked anywhere near Peyton Manning or Dan Marino. Ever. Not even close.
But even still, that's a whole different era. And can we say guys like Joe Montana and Dan Marino were ahead of their time as far as their era?
Yeah, Dan Marino, yeah, absolutely.
Especially year 2.
Especially year 2. So okay, hold on one second. What's audio and stuff? It sounds really bad.
I'm not even talking. I mean,
no, I know. There's just like an echo or something.
Oh yeah, it's been like that since yesterday on my pod. I've been hearing that like.
Okay, now it's gone.
Might be mine. I'm taking a look.
Yeah, I think
that's mine.
Okay, that's all right. Again, I'm looking at this from I don't think he is getting the credit. I like he's winning games, which is what you're supposed to do. And when you and I think it's the Lamar thing. Because again, before this postseason run, I would not have put him in consideration with the Lamar, Allen, Burrow segment. Okay, I would not. Well, now things have changed. Okay, now he's won a Super Bowl. He's beaten Mahomes. He's outplayed Mahomes twice in the Super Bowl. Yes, that matters. So again, and this goes to the point. I know you're saying that Jaden Daniels. And again, I love Jaden Daniels. I'm not downplaying what he did this year. It was amazing. It was cool. Great. Again, we were all on the Jordan Love train at the end of last year, and look where that ended up. So he's been a proven starter now for 4 years, gone to 2 Super Bowls out of those 4 years, and is a massive playmaker. Isn't like Eli Manning where he's making a lucky throw here and there. I don't know, man. I honestly right now, if you're going into the playoffs right now and you're going to win a Super Bowl, are you picking Lamar Jackson to go to that Super Bowl, or are you picking Jalen Hurts?
That's a valid point.
I still go Lamar.
Oh, based on what?
I first of all, although Lamar didn't play his absolute best game against Buffalo,
At all.
Let's not act as if Mark Andrews, and I have to hold Mark Andrews accountable because I'm also an Oklahoma guy. You also picked a horrible time to play an off-field game as well. We cannot completely absolve Mark Andrews, not just the 2-point conversion, but also the fumble and everything else. But let me ask you this, Flash, because I understand you would make the argument if you put some other quarterback with the Philadelphia Eagles, would they have done the same thing as Jalen Hurts? Let me ask you this question. If you put Jalen Hurts with the Buffalo Bills, hell, if you put him with the Washington Commanders, would they go this far? Would they go to an NFC Championship game the first time since 1991?
I think you're equating like the poorly run, no offense to your franchise, a poorly run franchise for the last 25, almost 30 years to. Now remember, this is an Eagles team that didn't win a Super Bowl until they beat my New England Patriots just recently. Okay, so and now they've replaced Jalen Hurts. And do I think he could have gone to a divisional round or an NFC title game or an AFC title game if he was switched to another team? Absolutely, I could.
I'm talking about the Washington with this current regime, not the one with Dan Snyder, because we all know how. I don't want to use the profanity on Champ Show, but we all know what a train wreck Dan Snyder was as an owner. So I don't want to relive that.
It was a shit show.
Yeah,
he was. But
so under this current,
possibly so, you may look at it because you look at Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, Dan Quinn, the new coaching regime. And plus, to Champ's point, he's mentioned this multiple times on my pod, they have over $80 million in cap space. So they're going to try to do the very best that they can to get themselves some hogs, not to mention some running backs. And also, we need another number 2 wide receiver because, look, we missed out we lost Dotson. We traded him. Okay, so therefore, who do we get? Are we going to get Garrett Wilson? But I just, the reason why I have Daniels over him. It's just like from the eye test, his ability just to throw the football. It depends on what type of runner do you want. If you want someone who's effective that can fight for
hold on. My original question was, if you literally had to pick for a quarterback to go into the playoffs with to win a Super Bowl, would you pick Lamar? Would you pick Jalen Hurts? You said Lamar. Why?
I think Lamar. I think Lamar. I still give Lamar a slight chance because of just his ability, despite the fact that he's come up short in the playoffs. I think this time, compared to the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, he didn't play as completely bad. He still played bad. There were some mistakes on his part, the fumble, the interception. But I thought that Lamar Jackson on the final drive, he did show me something. I actually thought, okay, he made some impressive throws. That 2-point conversion again on Mark Andrews, I was very disappointed, and I felt like, no, he cannot be absolved for that because
But
Mark Andrews, we consider him top 3, top 5 as a tight end, right?
that's and that's great. I agree. Mark Andrews had a
But
terrible game.
Flash, are you picking Jalen Hurts because you've seen it, and not only that, he doesn't put you in a position that you feel like he's going to make a mistake for you?
Can I intervene in this real quick?
Sure.
All right. I'm gonna take this back to wrestling real quick. I never forget when The Rock and John Cena had the number 2 match. Y'all remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And I never forget he said, and this is to Flash's point, not to, and I have to say this, and this is what I think Flash is leading into. I never forget the one thing he told John Cena. He said, "You think you can beat me. I know I can beat you." And I think that's the reason why he's saying Jalen Hurts over Lamar. You think that Lamar can beat somebody. We know Jalen can beat somebody.
Yeah.
And to your point, PSP, of course, he impressed us in that situation where he was able to bring his team back. But the thing is, if you have a great team like you do, why are you making those mistakes in the first place?
In the biggest moments,
when you know it's do or die.
Yeah, and he's had a history
point, and I think he's trying to make.
And he keeps doing that every single year in the playoffs.
Is it fair to say though that unlike Jalen Hurts, too much is asked on Lamar's plate? Just saying.
No,
not necessarily, because the thing is, you have a running back. Like I said, you have a running back that's just as good, if not better, than Saquon. And like I said, look, if they wanted to tailor make the offense to go through Derrick Henry, they could have. Because hell, we saw Derrick. Look, it goes back to what I said. We think about something. We know we've seen this before. We've seen Derrick Henry literally run his team to an AFC Championship appearance. So the thing is, it wasn't like it was all on him like the last year, as far as the offensive load, as far as the MVP he had last year, as far as he had 47 touchdowns. So the offensive load wasn't all on him.
But at the same time, we got to stop saying, well, because someone has a better record or has outperformed them, that necessarily makes them better. By that logic, Dak but here's the thing: is Dak Prescott a better quarterback than Justin Herbert? Because a lot of people will say, well, Justin Herbert is 0-2 against Dak Prescott, therefore Justin Herbert is not that good. Justin Herbert is overrated. Justin Herbert's
comparable to each other. I don't think they're really much different. I don't think they're honestly much different from each other right now. I don't like. Dak's been in the league a lot longer, so he's got a little bit more of a history of. But they're stat padding quarterbacks.
Yeah, and the thing is,
I hate that. I'm sorry, I hate the term stat padding quarterbacks because you still got to perform at the end of the day, though.
You're right, but it's like it's like the one player on an NBA team, that is putting up all the stats, but apparently they're the rest of the team just it's
that ain't their fault though.
I'm just what's Kirk Cousins? What is Kirk Cousins? What is Kirk Cousins to you?
A one and done. One well for me as far as like
career whole quarterback. What is he?
A guy who puts up a lot of stats and also does make a lot of money, though. On the flip side,
a decent regular season quarterback is all he is.
So he's Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert. He's nothing special. He again, the biggest thing in my measuring stick as a quarterback is that's great that you can put up the numbers during the regular season. That's great. That's great. But at the end of the game, or at the end of the day, the way that these players are judged, not only to themselves, by their peers, is when you win.
but here's the thing. Speaking of that, and Champ, I gotta hold you accountable too.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we were on the Hot podcast with Thomas?
Yeah.
And he asked us the question: prime Russell Wilson or prime Jaden Daniels?
Yes.
I picked a prime Russell Wilson because of longevity and the success. But you agreed with Thomas that you would pick a Jaden Daniels because the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of the Washington Commanders, you think of Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
When you think but when you think of the Philadelphia Eagles, does Jalen Hurts, is he the first thing that comes to your mind? Is he the reason? Which is why I also mentioned, is he in some way kind of like Russell Wilson? Because when you think of Seattle, you don't think of Russell Wilson as the very first thought. You think of the Legion of Boom. You think of Pete Carroll. You think of Beast Mode. When you think of Philadelphia, yes, Jalen Hurts has been a good quarterback. But let me ask you something. The year before, he did struggle taking care of the football. And they also brought in Saquon Barkley to make a huge difference for the offense. Not to mention the defensive line. As Champ always puts it out, the Philadelphia Bulldogs or the Georgia Eagles does Howie Roseman, have I often said, is he not the best executive in NFL BRF? I have said that because a lot of times he does make a lot of splash and spectacular moves.
Yes.
And when you think of the Eagles, I don't want to sound like I'm hating on or shitting on Jalen Hurts, but is he the reason that comes off your mind the very first time?
Yeah, I agree with you to that extent. What do you think? I'm seeing where you're going. The thing is, do you think about him as the reason for winning the game? Like when you think about Tom Brady, okay, he the reason why they won. When you think about Peyton Manning, he's the reason why they're making it to the playoff. When you think about Lamar, he's the reason why they're making it to the playoff. When you think about Josh Allen, he's the reason why they're making it to the playoff versus the pieces that are around him. So I get what you're saying as far as that is concerned. So you make a valid point, man. Look, let me let y'all cook some more. I
want to go back to the question that you posed on a different podcast, or Thomas did on a prime Jaden Daniels versus a prime Russell Wilson. I don't think that's a valid question right now. We haven't even seen Jaden Daniels prime.
No, I answered that question. And the reason
you asked the question. Okay.
No, I answered the question.
Thomas asked Champ and I the question. I said prime Russell Wilson because of longevity.
But you're comparing we haven't seen prime Jaden Daniels yet. We don't know what
based on upside, though. I took him based on upside.
So then, to me, the question would be: would you take early Russell Wilson or early Jaden Daniels? Like that's the question then, because because to answer with longevity, we don't know what Jaden Daniels is capable with longevity wise yet. So it's would you? I get what you're you're trying to go with it, but it's the question of basically, would you take Russell Wilson? And I would like to argue that Russell Wilson, for after the Legion of Boom wasn't the Legion of Boom anymore, had multiple MVP caliber seasons with a terrible offensive line,
especially 2015.
What?
Yeah,
especially 2015. Yes. He was making a deep run for the MVP.
Yeah, he was the team. So I would argue, yes, when you thought of Seattle, yes, you think of Russell Wilson. Now, when you think of Philadelphia, do you think of Jalen Hurts? I think pre-Saquon, because he was such a thing this year. Yes, but to argue your point about, well, he was given this and he was given that and he was given this. Well, Lamar has just been given piece after piece after piece after piece. Not to mention way better coaching. I mean, we can all agree that John Harbaugh is a better coach than Nick Sirianni. I mean, that's the thing. We Monken's one of the better offensive minds in football. He's been given multiple top 10 defenses. In one of the most well-run organizations since 2001, 2000. So
that's the reason why I took Jaden Daniels as well, because, excuse me, PSP, I know that's your team, but prior to Magic Johnson and Josh Harrison take over, it was a lot of questions around them if they were basketball guys. Remember, Ben Johnson wasn't anxious to go there because they were quote unquote basketball guys. And that was you to come into an organization that has been borderline, sewer juice. I mean, for many, many years, and you to come in there and automatically just change the culture like that. That's why I took him over there. And like I said, he didn't come in with a defense. He didn't come in with just high power. The main weapon on that team, for you to get that team to an NFC championship your very, very first year, no offensive line, no hogs, the running back position was like comparable, but not on a
y'all keep
level.
Talking. I'll be right
That is just it was magnificent. That's why I said
that. But look, there was a reason why I picked Washington to finish second in the NFC East. That team has been teetering on getting to another level since 2020. They've just needed a quarterback. That's it. They've had a pretty consistent defense. They've had a pretty consistent coaching staff, even though Daniel Snyder was still there. Like, they actually had.
That was the biggest difference.
Yes. But they were just they were a quarterback away. They were. And my statement was proven right. That we have it. We can go to the tape. That I predicted this. And so this franchise and the things that he did wasn't as it was great, but I personally don't think that it was let's not act like this was the LeBron James, Michael Jordan, where he's the only thing and he's dragging this team to a playoff run.
But weren't we having discussions about Jaden Daniels arguably having the greatest rookie season ever? Because we've seen a lot of other rookie quarterbacks like Sean King, Joe Flacco, Ben Roethlisberger, Mark Sanchez, Brock Purdy. Most of those guys have had really good defenses. And were they as prolific as passers in their rookie seasons as Jaden?
No, but I also equate a little bit of that to how the rules have changed.
I also agree, because but at the same time, should that be unfair to Jaden though? Because coming into Washington, as much as I love Brian Robinson Jr., I love Brian Robinson Jr. I know Champ does too.
He's not an epic running back. I get your point. I 100% agree. But it's a, and not only that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Flash.
And I look at what he did, and yes, I think the rule changes have helped. A lot of young quarterbacks. This is also my point too, though. Is again, this is year one. I want to see what he does now that everybody's got film. So let's see what happens. But do I think he had one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time? Yes, I do. But my overall point is, what the original question that got this thing so going was, if you were going to win a Super Bowl, who would you pick right now going into the playoffs, Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts? I've seen the evidence.
So therefore, Jalen Hurts is better.
I think right now, yeah. Go ahead, Champ.
I have to say this. Going back to Jaden Daniels, to PSP's point, I remember one thing about Sean King, all the rookie quarterbacks that came in. All of them had better back systems than Jaden Daniels as well. If you remember the 1999 Bucks, outside of their defense, you think about two people. Y'all know who that is, right?
Yes.
WD-40.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Ward Dunn, Mike Allstott.
Yes. Yes.
And the coverage you defense. Yeah.
And let's not forget the great Tony Dungy as the head coach too.
Yes. So they made it to an NFC championship. They had a better Andy, Bert Emanuel for all of his for all of his drop passes, for that one drop pass that he had in the NFC championship. He was a pretty different receiver. But
I guess
my bad. BRF.
No, I'm just wanting to say. I guess my main talking point with this whole Jalen Hurts thing is, where was this last year? Because I've seen people like, oh, he's been elite for some time. I'm like, y'all wasn't saying it last year. When they got off to this hot start and barely scratched their way in the playoffs, and his play was one of the main reasons why they struggled last year. Like, I mean, I get it, things can change on a dime, but I'm like, if he's been elite for some time, which is what some people are actually saying, he's been elite for a while. I'm like, where was this last year?
Jalen?
I think to be considered elite, you have to perform at a high level statistically, and you also still have to win. That's why, I mean, but if you want to make an argument for Hurts tier 2 to BRF's point, I have no problem with that. But I do think that Jalen Hurts has been disrespected too much, because I think there are other, and flash to the point, and I mentioned this to the champ, it was really supposed to be Carson Wentz's team.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, when even with Carson Wentz, after his second season, had it not been for injury, he would have won the league MVP.
Oh yeah.
I mean, although Brady wanted that.
Yes, 100%.
Right. Nick Foles came in, took the team to the Super Bowl and won. They moved on from Nick Foles. They still went with Carson Wentz. They drafted Jalen Hurts for whatever reason that the Eagles had. Could it be because of Carson Wentz's durability problems?
They didn't trust him coming off that injury. That's why they drafted him.
It could be durability, and plus, I even heard that Carson Wentz was even changing the play calls that Doug Peterson was calling. Jalen Hurts is more than to be proud of if you're Philadelphia, because you have a quarterback who will do whatever it takes to win, who is coachable, who is smart, knowledgeable, is a team guy, team leader, guys respect for him, etc., etc. I think Philadelphia, they should be very happy that they have somebody to have around for the next 10 years. He's only 26 years old.
Yeah.
And we keep talking about how and we talk about, has Jaden Daniels reached his peak? Well, has Jalen Hurts yet? He's only 26. Chances are he can be better.
And and honestly, he hasn't. I don't think he's hit his peak yet. That's
the beauty.
And that's why I was kind of bringing that. But I don't know. That's why conversations like this kind of like, they kind of rattle my brain a little bit, just because things can change like on a dime from like year to year. Like this time last year, we weren't even remotely thinking about calling Jalen Hurts the top 10 quarterback. And this was his worst season as a starting quarterback. And then he puts together probably two of the better games of his career in the NFC title game and the Super Bowl. And we're actually having top 5 discussions with him. So it's like,
wait, hold on. I don't think. I think that last year leaving him out of the top 10 was a little silly. Like, when we went over the power rankings of where he was, and that whole team
fell apart. It wasn't just Jalen Hurts. I mean, the offensive coordinator. Not only that, injuries on top of that with the Philadelphia Eagles. For the Philadelphia Eagles, you lose to the New York Giants. I believe it was on Christmas Day or whatever. You had a big lead at one point, and then you lost that game. So let's not look at just Jalen Hurts. Let's just look at it from the standpoint. I believe Jalen Hurts, his best season was the year. Had it not been for injury, kind of like with Carson Wentz, he would have won the league MVP.
Yeah.
Even though Patrick Mahomes won it, and I didn't have a problem with it. 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns. You lead the NFL in passing yards and TDs. And you also did have narrative because that was the first year without Tyreek. But Jalen Hurts was producing not only on the air, but also on the ground. He was also on pace, had it not been for injuries, to have 4,000 yards. And had it not been for the injuries against Chicago, he would have won it. But
in 2022, he was second in the voting in AP Player of the Year, second in MVP voting, and third in Offensive Player of the Year voting.
right.
So
And was also second team All Pro.
Yes, yeah, and second team All Pro. So the notion that he wasn't a top 10 quarterback, I think is a little silly. I think people were kind of leaving him out of the conversation for I don't know what reason. But was he elite?
No.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, Flash, let me ask you this. Outside of the playoffs this season, did you thought Hurts was elite throughout the regular season?
No, but I think winning Super Bowls makes you elite or can make you elite.
Can make you elite.
Okay, and I think he's elite now. I do.
It's not like his argument for being elite isn't elite. Damn. Like I said, I got my degree in computers, not in spelling. But I think his argument for being elite can be validated. Number one, you've succeeded where most have failed. On top of that, you have 2 Pro Bowls. You have an All-Pro. Second team. You was in the MVP conversation at one point. You have not had a losing season or as of yet.
No.
When you're in the lineup, the team is a hell of a lot more dangerous when you're in that lineup. You saw that when he wasn't in the lineup, when Kenny Smallhands was in the lineup. So
no, they did beat the crap out. I mean, granted it was a bad team. They did beat the crap out of somebody with him in the lineup.
Yeah, but it was the passing game and the offense wasn't the same.
But Champ, having said all of that, because you talked about with Mahomes and how great he is, could it be because he's a victim and because unlike Jalen Hurts, he's become an anomaly?
That's valid.
Wait, what do you elaborate? What do you mean?
Champ has talked about how with these elite quarterbacks, Lamar, Allen, Burrow, how they've been victims of Patrick Mahomes. Is there any shame to that because Jalen Hurts, unlike them, has beaten them?
No, I don't think there's any shame to it, but I think when you do beat him, I think it elevates you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, but when Eli beat Tom Brady twice, at any point did you ever say Eli Manning was elite?
No, but that elevated him to a Hall of Fame quarterback.
And he wasn't even voted in the Hall of Fame, which I believe he should be in.
Yeah, so I'm saying he should be in.
The thing is this.
Me personally, I don't. He's gonna make it. Do I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback? No, but he's gonna make it.
The thing is this. When we talked about Eli, there were so many questions about him outside of those 2 Super Bowl seasons. There's so many questions about him outside of those Super Bowl seasons. Because outside of those Super Bowl seasons, he don't even have playoff wins.
No.
And he led the league in interceptions, I think 3 to 4 times.
3 times.
Yeah.
Where it's just
3 times.
Like, what the hell? What are you doing?
Why you think I ride so hard for my boy Matt Ryan being a Hall of Fame quarterback?
I think Matt Ryan is a Hall of Fame quarterback, but the question was, does doing something make you elite? And I think Champ, now if I'm putting words in your mouth, I apologize. But his point is Jalen, it's not like Jalen Hurts is like Eli Manning level terrible in the regular season.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
And he's been
let's not go that far.
Eli Manning has never made All-Pro. He's never been in an MVP conversation. Jalen Hurts has been in those conversations. And guess what? He's been durable. A lot of these quarterbacks that we are talking about, with the exception of Josh Allen, they've been hurt. Jalen Hurts hasn't missed. And look, another thing that makes an argument, he's played under 9 different coaches since he's been in the league.
Yeah. Again, this kid keeps getting told no.
It's like, in the last quarterback that had that many offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches when he was in the league was Cordell Stewart. How did that turn out? The thing is with Jalen Hurts, he's been in conversations where he's been in the MVP. He's been all pro. And like I said, even at the beginning of the playoffs, I gave the John Elway analogy. Guess what? Why do I, as a player, have to suffer because my running back is great? Hell no. I'm not finna, look, it's kind of like having a girlfriend. It's kind of like having the prettiest woman alive in Beyonce and having her not wear a sexy dress to the ball. Let her wear it. Turn around, handshake on that ball, let him run you to the championship. Now, when it comes my turn, in order to lead us to a victory, which I did, which Elway did, I'm going to lead us to a victory. But for now, I'm going to let you strut your stuff.
I just want to BRF's point about where was this talk pre-hand. Do I think Jalen Hurts as a whole was kind of put on the back burner when it comes to that conversation because of all the – let's not forget, too, like there was a lot of talk about firing Nick Sirianni in the last year since like that team fell apart.
Bro, there was talk. There have been talk about
talks about Sean McDermott,
Jalen Hurts because they didn't trust him.
Yeah, but the amount of again, the amount of locker room turmoil that was going on in that locker room with AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts and the mudslinging that's coming out from the organization, and Nick Sirianni is actually an idiot, and I mean all sorts of stuff. And do I think that his ability as a quarterback and the conversation around him changed and he was kind of just put over here because of that? I think so. I think everybody, including me, I forgot how good he was. And this year, I mean, I'm looking at his stats right now. His first year as a full-time starter, he was 8-7. His next year, he's 14-1. They had the year last year where they kind of fell apart at 11-6, and he was 12-3 this year and won a Super Bowl. And he's been part of the MVP discussion, and probably, and to PSP, to your point, would have probably won the MVP if they didn't fall apart.
Not to mention him getting hurt.
Yeah, and him getting and his completion percentage has been, in fact, this year was his best. It was almost at 69%. He didn't throw for 3,000 yards. That's true to BRS. What?
It was that high?
68.
Yeah, it was that high.
68.7. Yeah,
that's Brees kind of stuff.
So
but was he throwing the football as much though?
He didn't have to. Not with Saquon Barkley.
Not this year. His attempts were way down from previous years, but it's not like. But even in the years he was throwing the football a lot, he was hovering around 65 and 66% completion percentage.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And you talk about Lamar and the running. Let's go to his that's advanced.
He has good years. Lamar has 2,000.
Oh wait, champ. I got something for you. I got something for you, champ.
Yeah.
I got something for you, champ. In the regular season, obviously Peyton clears Eli, but in the postseason, would you take Eli over Peyton?
I still wouldn't. No chance. I still wouldn't. I still wouldn't.
It's
That's fair for me to say. Is that not fair to say?
That is fair.
It's fair to say, but I still wouldn't.
I'll say it. Yes.
Oh, ain't no way I'll take it. If I got a choice,
I ain't doing it.
I got more. I got more
ahead,
because you called me the New Jersey genius. Let me ask you this question.
Let's go.
Joe Flacco. We all know he ain't shining Peyton's shoes in the regular season or any elite quarterback in the regular season, but I sure as hell want him in the postseason.
Yep. Yeah, I do.
That one I'll give you.
Yep.
I'm liking this. So you need to come to the party more often, PSP.
That one I'll give you.
Yeah, I like this.
Do you want Bart Starr or Dan Fouts?
Now that's messed up, bro. Come on, man.
You want Bart Starr?
Yeah, that's messed up.
You want Mark Sanchez? Mark Sanchez did went to 2 straight AFC Championship games, and he did outplay
Mark-
Tom Brady in the divisional round the year when he won the league MVP.
You watch your tone, sir.
It's just the truth.
He did not outplay Tom Brady in that game.
He had 3 touchdowns.
Okay, fine. He outplayed Tom Brady in that
Yeah,
game.
I was about to say, yeah, he kind of
Flacco
did.
outplayed Brady twice in the AFC Championship game. One game he lost because Lee Evans dropped the pass. The other, I mean, hey, Flacco, it was that year in 2012, 2013, which, by the way, was one of the best performances of a QB season in the postseason.
Yeah. Oh, no. Flacco had like a Joe Montana-esque run.
Yeah, that's it.
And
That's the
even
89
before
run.
when they lost to New England in 2014, into that playoffs before they lost, he was still performing at a massively high level in the playoffs. But I think, would I take Mark Sanchez over who?
I'm not taking Mark Sanchez over anybody.
I'm not taking Mark Sanchez over my little cousin who played
Two
Mac-
outliers randomly. I don't think.
But
is
look,
Yeah, I look at that. I look at that from the situation where it's like Mark Sanchez just happened to be one of those outliers that was just blessed to have the New York Jets defense. Joe Flacco, time and time again, showed up in the playoffs, so you can't really call Joe Flacco an outlier.
Yeah, and it's like saying that, like, would you take Trent Dilfer over,
Warren Moon.
Yeah, Warren Moon. You wouldn't.
Exactly.
But it's like to me, I'm very much a have you won rings guy. I always think there are exceptions to the rule, like Dan Marino is the exception to that rule, where he's still considered in the top 5, 6, whatever. I mean, not long ago, he was a top 5 quarterback. He is the exception to the rule. So, but as a whole, though, honestly, you asked me straight up, if I'm going into the playoffs and I want a quarterback to win a Super Bowl between the Manning brothers, I'm picking Eli.
The only reason why I used the Manning brothers is because, remember, in the regular season, between Lamar or Jalen Hurts, you would rather want Lamar in the regular season. I understand you would take Jalen in the postseason because you've seen him do it. You've seen him win the Super Bowl now over Lamar. That's why I use the Eli Peyton analogy.
Peyton, to me, is one of the biggest conundrums ever. I look at, because even the 2 Super Bowls that he's won, no one's going to argue that the second ring was because of him.
He didn't play well. He didn't play well in either game.
No, and he didn't.
That was because of the defense. Their defense that year with the no-fly zone, and especially with Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, and also Wade Phillips that year.
Even the first play, even the first one where he won with the Indianapolis Colts, the reason why they got on the road they did was because that defense stepped up tremendously the second half of the season going into the playoffs.
Yeah, Bob Sanders went like straight up Ronnie Lott for the rest of the season. And I want to point out, even in the Super Bowl against Chicago, it wasn't because of his. It wasn't that because Peyton played well. It was Joseph Adai and the fact that he was going against Rex Grossman as the other quarterback. So I don't think it's as insane for me to say that if I'm going into the playoffs, I'm picking Eli as the one to win a Super Bowl over Peyton. And look, the Peyton thing was going back all the way to his Tennessee days, where he couldn't win. He just couldn't win in the big moments. Well, I don't know why, but that was his not coming out of college. That was the argument for Ryan Leaf over him.
Yeah, couldn't win the big one.
He couldn't win the big one. And so it's
Couldn't
like
beat Florida.
No, he couldn't beat Florida. So it's like and that's something to me. And maybe I put too much emphasis on that, but I look at it at the end of the day, when Tom Brady's hanging around Peyton Manning, and Peyton's like, well, I won so many MVPs. Like, yeah, well, and everybody's gonna go, ooh, and the argument's over. So it's just that thing. It's just, so when now that, and Hurts is proven, he's a proven winner.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean it just on winning rings or winning games. Like, this is a dude, I love a dude that keeps getting told, no, you're not good enough. And keeps proving everybody wrong. It reminds me of Brady, and that's why part of the reason why I love Brady is that from the moment he was in high school, he was told no.
Yeah.
And
Is that the reason why you have Jordan as the GOAT? Because Michael Jordan was told no back in high school. He was cut from the high school basketball team.
no,
No, I don't blame you for feeling that way, Flash. Being told no, because that just gives you motivation or fuel. One thing you love to do is just prove people wrong.
yeah,
But I do think Hurts is a good enough quarterback that you can win with. So for Eagles fans, let's be on the record. I never said Jalen Hurts was trash. I never said he was horrible.
I
So
heard it.
please, huh?
Said no, I heard. I'm kidding. I just
Yeah,
said,
I
I
but
know
look,
you never said that.
I never said that. And I told I told 49ers fans this. If Brock Purdy wins a Super Bowl last year, which I don't believe he was the reason why they lost that Super Bowl, would you have said he's elite?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Had Brock Purdy and the Niners won the Super Bowl last year against the Chiefs, would we have said Brock Purdy is elite? Because Brock Purdy wasn't in the discussion for the MVP.
Bro, no.
I think, yeah, you got a point there because I'm not calling Brock Purdy elite with a championship.
No, well, hold on a second. Hold on. I think if he does, because the knock on was, well, he's not physically gifted enough, and he's not this. And if he would have won that ring, that changes that conversation.
No, because then people are still going to say he was carried to that championship. Look at the talent he had.
But we just made, but you could say that the argument that Lamar was carried was because all the talent around him.
And people will also make the argument before we keep talking about Saquon's year. Let's not forget the year Christian McCaffrey had that year.
Yeah, but I again, I think if he plays well,
Which he didn't play bad in the Super Bowl. I believe it had more to do with Kyle Shanahan not handing the football enough. And then Kyle, the
yeah,
overtime rules. They changed the rules and you decided to have the football first?
yeah, so I think if he wins that game, I think it changes the conversation to again, when you win, it changes the narrative around you. It just does. We do this every year with whoever wins whatever. Super Bowls, Stanley Cups, World Series, MVPs. If you win something, it changes the narrative around you. If Brock Purdy would have won that Super Bowl and he played really well, and he doesn't get hurt against Philly too in the NFC Championship game, by the way. Yeah, I do think the narrative changes around him and whether he's elite or not. Absolutely, and I think it's a strong conversation. They were a different. That San Francisco 49er offense was a different team with him at quarterback. It was, you could see it with the eyeballs. It ran.
Especially the fact that they not only drafted, they moved up in the draft to take Trey Lance. Where is he now?
He's
He had the deli eating sandwiches with himself.
yeah.
That's because you went with him.
Yeah, man. Hey man, the girls got to flock to the table somehow.
Why? Again, we're playing hypotheticals, but why wouldn't he be in that conversation?
You know what?
If he wins that game, sorry, go ahead, Chad. If he wins that game, obviously.
To be honest with you, although for you to be considered elite, like I said, you have to be considered the best in the league at one point in your career. Even the great Bill Parcells said that. You have to see, he made that argument for the Hall of Fame. You have to be considered the best at your position for at least 3 years in order to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So that's the reason why a lot of these quarterbacks, although they win championships, they're not considered elite. You're not the best at your position. In order for a lot of people, and I'm not talking about myself because I have my own criteria. You have Pro Bowls, you have all pros, and you're able to win. Guess what? In my mind, it makes you elite. But my criteria is not the same as somebody else. But conventional wisdom, I will say this. You are considered elite if you were made available for a trade tomorrow How many teams would give up they draft picks for the next 5 years in order to get you?
That's a good argument.
One, two.
Not that's a magnificent argument because champ, although Joe Burrow does not have a Super Bowl ring, you told me and you said this yourself.
Yeah.
If they let go of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, I'm Joe Burrow. I announce my retirement, and then I go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And speaking of that with Jalen Hurts, how many teams would give up as much draft compensation for a Lamar, a Josh Allen, a Joe Burrow, for a Jalen Hurts? Would you give up a first round, 2 first round picks for a Jalen Hurts?
Yes. Now, yeah, absolutely yes. Yes. I don't think it would be. I think the quarterbacks you give 2 first round draft picks up where you're selling the farm, I think is Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Hurts, Lamar.
Herbert in that conversation?
Yes, Herbert's in that conversation. He's yes, Herbert's he is all world. See that's where that conversation gets tricky because then you have to look at the young talent ones like a Herbert, like a CJ Stroud, like a Jordan Love. Then you have to throw them in the conversation because then you're looking at upside and potential. So that's where that conversation gets tricky.
Heck, you're hearing even talks about Trevor Lawrence to Pittsburgh, which that won't happen.
I heard that too.
You know what? On that note, let's just move on because don't nobody want to hear about T. Mid and going nowhere. You can take his ass down there to the bar and let him sit down.
I love your irrational Trevor Lawrence hate. It's hilarious to me.
You can thank Brandon from the block for that one.
Me and my distant brother Brandon, like I said, my grandfather has a lot of explaining to do because if you put me and Brandon side by side, you know, with the glasses on and everything, that's my brother. But my grandfather has a lot of explaining to do. But
that's his light skinned twin.
Yeah. So I was just gonna be real. But when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, I'm not impressed. And quite frankly, it's just I never was impressed.
I don't know.
I'm not impressed.
So Chad, what are you trying to say about Trevor Lawrence? His play is as bad as Hulk Hogan when it comes to his wrestling?
Yeah, it's about as bad as I am when you put me around a plate full of hot wings.
Dude,
but I digress.
I love it. Everybody has like an irrational hate for a random athlete for no reason. And I love that it's Trevor. I love Trevor Lawrence.
Look, I don't have an irrational hate for no reason. You're just not that damn good. You're not. I mean, there's not
his hate. No, he has more hate. He has more hate for Arthur Smith. Champ has more hate for Arthur.
Yeah,
Smith.
I hate Arthur Smith. He's an idiot.
Yeah,
but you're just not that good. And when you're hyped up to a certain extent, and people are just he's it. No, he ain't. Like, stop. He's not.
Dude, every time that dude's name comes
and
up,
it's just like his name gets mentioned, and it's just like, why are we even talking about this dude?
Speaking of the quarterbacks, like with the draft, who would you feel comfortable going with between Cam or Shador?
We got to say that for another day, bro.
Oh, sorry.
We got to say that for another day because we'll be here for another hour. So
yeah.
So as much as I've enjoyed watching y'all cook, we're gonna leave that segment where it is because we got a lot more to cover right about now. But y'all been cooking for like the last hour, and I enjoyed the hell out of that. That was good. I'm clipping a lot of that, by the way, because that was some good discussion. But real quick, and I do say real quick, we're gonna breeze through this segment real quick. Angel Reese 2020 games. What are your thoughts on that, BRF?
All right, see, I'm glad you came to me. If her offense catches up to her defense and rebounding, she's a top 5 player in the WNBA. If her offense catches up with her defense and her rebound, because her defense and her rebounding is about as elite as it gets in the WNBA. If her offense catches up to it, she's top 5 player in the league.
And she developed the mid-range games. I think working with Lisa Leslie has definitely helped her during the offseason. And to everybody's point, Lisa Leslie pointed out what everybody had been saying for the longest. And, her being, but the difference between everybody else saying it and Lisa Leslie saying it is that's Lisa Leslie. Let's just keep it all the way a buck. And Lisa Leslie said, look, we need to work on your layups, and we need to work on your putback game, and we need to work on your mid-range. And they definitely helped her do that. And it's showing while she's in Unrivaled, because she's definitely honing those skills.
And I could see it, and real quick, not to mean to interrupt you, but you could see that when I looked at the highlights like before we came on, you could just, it's like I saw it a little bit, like the confidence she had around like the basket. Like normally it would be like, it's like 1, 2, 3. Like she'll stuff the stat sheets as far as the rebounds, but at the same time, one of those could be like 4 or 5 rebounds on the same shot attempt. And it's like you can kind of see the confidence a little bit like underneath the basket, like her footwork, because her ability to putting it back up. Like she wasn't getting these, like it wasn't these 2, 3, 4 rebound possessions. So that's why I say like that's why I say what I say as far as Angel Reese goes. Like if the offense catches up with the defense and the rebound, I think she's in the conversation as top 5 in WNBA.
And they definitely gonna need her to be top 5 very, very soon, because as far as whereas the Indiana Fever did a lot.
These teams are loaded.
Yeah, the Chicago Sky didn't do not one thing in
order to get. These teams are loaded. Indiana loaded. Phoenix reloaded. Atlanta loaded. These teams loaded.
I just want to say I think we're gonna see Indiana and CC just.
Oh, they're finna rush. Oh, they're finna run stuff.
And Caitlin Clark is gonna get even better.
Oh,
yeah,
they finna run stuff.
I don't, and like I think it's gonna be like they're gonna have time to practice together now. They're gonna have time to develop before the season starts. Caitlin Clark is gonna get even better. It's gonna be.
The best thing they could have did was sign Kelsey Mitchell, bro.
Dude,
fact, I agree with you 1,000% because I've been on the Kelsey Mitchell train for a minute. That girl she a killer. She is lethal.
Yeah, I think the WNBA is in trouble as a whole. I think CC is going to go off.
No, it's going to be great come summertime, man, because I can't wait to watch some of those games, man. And it's just to Champ's point, NBA, you better get it together, because we talked about this with the All-Star game. Hey, WNBA, they're going to get more headlines, more and more headlines heading into this season.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you also have to factor in the players that are about to start coming in from college. You got Juju Watkins getting ready to come in. You got Paige Becker's getting ready to come in. You got Malaysia Fulwale, the point guard from South Carolina. She's about to get ready. Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, man. If there was ever a time for the WNBA to strike as far as their marketing and their advertising for the players that they're about to have come up, their young talent, this is the best opportunity for them to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. And Flau'jae Johnson. Don't forget about Flau'jae, man.
Oh, yeah, most definitely Flau'jae Johnson. Boy, I'm telling you, they got talent galore in college getting ready to hit the WNBA.
Yeah, how ironic the SEC running basketball too now. So, all you Big Ten fans, y'all shut up now. All of that talk. So, yeah. So, y'all,
I feel like that was a personal attack, sir.
No, my bad. No, this don't apply to you, man. This a lot of Big Ten fans that be coming at me on TikTok. Yeah, y'all been talking all that bitch. Talking about SEC didn't make the next championship. Y'all only been back 2 years. We've been doing we've been through this years and years. So stop. So we running basketball too. Who the number 1 team in the nation? It's Auburn. So who just won the national championship in women's college basketball? South Carolina. They're the SEC. Let's not even get into softball and baseball. SEC run that too. So, hey, everybody want to be down with the South. But but back on Angel Reese, real quick. They're gonna definitely be top 10 in the coming years, because they got rid of Mabry last year when they traded her to the Connecticut Sun. Got rid of her last year, who was a big part of their scoring. And just found out this yesterday, they didn't retain Kennedy Carter. So, they in trouble as far as scoring is concerned.
They are in trouble.
They're in trouble. So because you got the 2 bigs when it comes to Cardozo and Angel Reese, but you ain't got no scoring. So it's gonna be
yes.
I think it might be ugly. It's gonna be ugly for Chicago this year, I think. And I'm not trying to be an Angel Reese hater when I say this, but And I think Champ, you made the point about her footwork, and that's the thing that needed to change. She had really poor footwork. But I think she's not, and again, this is only her second year.
Yeah.
She's got years to grow here. I mean, she's what, 19, 20 years old, 21 maybe at the most.
22. She's
22.
22.
So like, you know, we got, you know, and the fact that she's taken the proactive approach to improving her offensive game is massive. Whew, crap, sorry. But I think but I think this year it's going to be kind of rough for Chicago. They lost players, they didn't retain anybody, and it's going to be a little rough.
You're losing Kennedy Carter and Mabry in the same sitting. I don't know why they didn't bring back Kennedy Carter for some reason.
I don't know why they didn't either.
But you know, probably, you know, but I mean, then you had a chance to get DJ Carrots, and you didn't do that either. So that was just crazy. But also look out for the Chicago, not Chicago, but look out for the Las Vegas Aces. They ain't done yet. You know.
Especially the year that Aja Wilson has, she may have another chance to win the MVP again.
As long as you got her, you always got a chance.
Yeah, but we know, I think we all can agree on one thing: the finest team in the WNBA is the Los Angeles Sparks, and we'll move on from there. Staying with basketball real quick. Hey man, did I lie? You got Rakia Jackson. You got Rakia Jackson.
That's why you call Jim Cornette colorful.
You got Rakia Jackson. You got Cameron Brink. She's on that team. Then you got Kelsey Plum on that team. So you can't tell me that ain't the finest team in the WNBA right now.
I can't disagree with you, champ.
Okay then. You got, hey man, when I say stuff, do I lie? You know, it might be colorful, but I don't lie. You know what I'm saying? But on another note, let's stay with basketball. Look, what are the odds that Cooper Flagg ends up with the San Antonio Spurs?
There's a big chance, though, because remember the news with Pop. Pop is not expected to return. It's really sad. It's really devastating for the San Antonio Spurs because you drafted Sterling Castle for defense. You also add in CP3, who's still to this day still playing at a very good level. Yes. And not only that, you picked up De'Aaron Fox in the trade. So to lose Wemby, I mean that's that's a blow for not only for San Antonio but for the NBA as far as marketing the brand. San Antonio's right now 12th. My thing is they're not that far off. My thing is I wouldn't tank because unless if it were like a big time generational talent, someone with that type of hype, then I can understand why you would tank. But if you're that close, if you're not that far off from making the play-in tournament, I still would compete.
Tanking goes against my principles. Like I could never. To not try to win is insane to me. However, the thing that Wemby is dealing with the blood clots has ended careers. And if you have a chance to replace Wemby with Cooper Flagg, oh man, because it's sad to see if in the last week San Antonio's lost Wemby for the year and possibly his career. Like this is what ended Chris Bosh's career. So, and then they lose Pop, and from what I read about Pop, it's basically this year, and he may not come back either. That's a huge blow to this franchise. Like, so if you have the ability to go get Cooper Flagg, I would understand it.
The only question I have about Cooper Flagg is this: are you going to be like these elite Duke players, or are you going to end up being another Christian Laettner?
I think he's got more physical talent than Christian Laettner.
So no, I'm talking about, and we're not talking about the easy way out. Don't, for the viewers out there, don't be taking the easy way out. And you know what I'm talking about. Don't play with me.
Sorry.
What I'm saying, not you.
Oh,
But the thing is, because some dummy behind the camera gonna say some, what? No, we're not talking about nowhere near. We're talking about basketball ability. Is he gonna be like a Jason Tatum or a Kyrie or even a Grant Hill, one of those guys? Or is he gonna end up, and hopefully he doesn't end up being like Zion, where he's on the sideline, and Christian Laettner, because they were injured a lot during the course of their career. So you got to ask yourself that. And, can he play as far as where the NBA is going? And
I
go ahead.
think if San Antonio has them, yes, because of how they operate, how they run their organization. I I just think with Wemby, to Flash's point, you mentioned with the blood clots. I think didn't Brandon Ingram have blood clots though?
yeah. He's one of the few that have actually been able to continue his career with it. I was listening to, I think, was it Brian Windhorst? I can't remember off the top of my head, but there have been multiple players that have lost their careers because of blood clots. Bosch was one of them. Brandon Ingram, like I said, was fine. Osir Thomas, I think, was another one. Let's see. Victor Omian, college. There's been a bunch of college players too that have had issues with it. It
ended Tommy Frazier's career.
Yeah, ended Tommy Frazier's career. So it's a thing, and so, man, with the NBA and the way that they're struggling right now with ratings, and lose their biggest talent right now is, or I should say their biggest young talent, and one of the most unique talents to ever walk onto, I think, any court, field, whatever, is a huge blow to the NBA right now. Just massive. And I hope he can get through this and come back, because that's just huge.
Agreed.
Most definitely agree.
I this would be a good segue to the Four Nations topic.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to start before we get to the official Four Nations topic, because I think that's going to play into it. What do we think is the problem with the NBA right now?
Players not giving enough effort.
Yeah, we talked
about that on the pod.
Yeah,
but my thing is, we can't teach you effort. That's something either you have or you don't. And with the All-Star game, I was very I mean, I didn't have a problem with the format. First to score 40 wins, because like I said, it's kind of like with pickup basketball, or like how Ice Cube runs the Big Three tournament. But I gotta be honest, I'm very disappointed with LeBron. Even Shannon Sharp, who's one of LeBron James' biggest fans, even called LeBron selfish for not letting the NBA know, hey, if you can't play with your ankle injury, can you at least let us know in advance? That way we could have gotten somebody else, like a Norman Powell or whoever, who is more than deserving for the All-Star. I just think with the NBA, they're just trying to do too much, and there's nothing that Adam Silver can do to convince these players. That was the point that Champ made. And it's really, I mean, who's the guy on NHL that was making the great argument on First Take about how the NHL?
PK Subban.
Yeah, he everything he said was spot on, and it just seems like with the NHL players, they make far less money compared to the NBA, but they show an enormous amount of effort. They want to play, and with the players, unless you have a legitimate injury or whatever the case may be, it just doesn't seem like they care. And back then, Kobe and Michael Jordan, they were great not only as basketball players, but they were also great for the NBA because of the responsibility.
Yeah.
Vanessa Bryant, when she talked about Kobe, when she did um the speech for Kobe's enshrinement for the Hall of Fame, she mentioned about Kobe saying, "What about all the basketball fans who spent their money and time just to come watch and see me play. The players don't really care that much about the responsibility. It's really unfortunate. It just leaves a sour taste. And look, even we're 2 weeks away from the we finished the Super Bowl already. It's been 2 weeks since the Super Bowl, and we're still talking about football. And it's only going to get worse for the NBA because scouting combine, free agency with the NFL, not to mention the draft, pro days. Let's not forget WrestleMania, March Madness, and everything else to take into consideration. The only time we'll probably pay enough attention to the NBA is when the play-in tournament or the playoffs. But then after that, and then I didn't even mention I mean, there's the NFL draft, and of course, let's not forget baseball season.
Yep.
And then
Especially after the offseason Major League Baseball just had.
right, and then the USFL, the XFL. I'm gonna be tuning in to watching that.
Yep.
So with the NBA, you haven't done a good enough job to promote your product and the players. It doesn't really seem like you really care.
I'm going to be
And-
honest.
Go ahead.
I interrupt you. I haven't watched one NBA game this year.
Really?
Not one. Nope.
Damn.
I just to PSP's point, to kind of piggyback off of it a little bit. I don't. These guys don't. I wait till the playoffs because then the real effort happens. And dude, and this is another reason. And maybe this is something that and I don't want to get off on the GOAT discussion, but this is why I've never considered LeBron the GOAT. You have never been a great ambassador for the game, ever. Like he was asked multiple times to do the dunk contest when he first came in the league, and he refused, and he acted like it was beneath him. Like, we're getting to the point, and this goes to when the Luka trade happened, and I brought up, is this the league pushing back against the powers that the players have? That it's gotten too much. The Jimmy Butler, there was talk about how he was handling the situation in Miami, that he could cost players guaranteed contracts from now on because this crap's getting out of control. Barkley went on a rant on the TNT NBA show a couple of years ago and talked all these and basically threw every NBA player under the bus. It was like, you guys are on the best jets. You have multiple doctors. You have the best equipment. You have the best of everything. You get load management, and you need to take more time off to play basketball. When stuff costs gazillions of dollars just to go to a game, just to take a family of four to an NBA game, like you're going to spend like $400, $500, $600, $700.
That's the shit. That's the shit up in there in the damn stand. That ain't including when you want to go low.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So the NBA's got nobody to blame but themselves. This is what happens again. As much as I'm for player empowerment and getting what you're worth, you can't let the inmates run the asylum for too long.
They've abused it, and look at the examples. Look at with James Harden. Hell, I mean, I don't want to throw. I mean, I hate throwing him under the bus, but Ben Simmons.
The thing is, there's a difference between player empowerment, because I believe that there's a little bit of player empowerment in each league. I believe there's a little bit of it, but the thing is, I call it an effect of like this. In the NFL, you have incentive to rock the house every night, because guess what? That's going to be bonuses. It's going to be bonuses. And to my point, it's just like, hey, you're not going to have those guaranteed contracts anymore. And even in baseball, you still have to play. But the thing is, in the NBA, you have all of these games. I mean, a lot of these guys You know, it's got for me. It got bad years ago when LeBron played all 82 games, and they stated because he did that he was supposed to win the MVP. I'm like, do you realize how many times John Stockton did that?
Yeah.
So I really think in the NBA, like I said in last night, and I hate to regurgitate the same information again, but the thing is, your outgoing star power does not have the same power as your incoming. Your outgoing, this is the biggest big three we have seen since Bird, Magic, and Jordan. And they're on their way out. And your incoming star power, let's just face it, let's just keep it all the way a buck. The WNBA has more star power going in than it's going out. Even if Asia Wilson retired tomorrow, their star power will be at its peak. So y'all are in trouble. But the thing is, y'all are in trouble because your ratings are low, the quality of basketball is low, and the thing is, we don't have those great two-way players that we're used to seeing.
5.3 million viewers last year tuned in for the All-Star. This year was at 4.7 million.
Exactly. We don't see those great pickup games like we used to see. So you're in trouble. And like I said, don't be surprised if not only them guaranteed contracts stop during the next collective bargaining agreement and they start incentivizing a little bit more, but don't be surprised, especially with the star power going low, don't be surprised if we find ourselves in another situation like we did in the 70s with the NBA.
I just want to point out. Go ahead, Chad. Sorry.
Now it's gonna be basketball for me personally is always gonna have its own following because of its connection to hip hop. It's always
and
gonna
fashion.
Have hip hop and fashion. It's always gonna have that base following. But as far as the casual fan coming in and this is must see TV like Bird and Magic, like Jordan, like Julius Erving, like Shaq and Kobe, we don't have that. The outgoing talent that's finna leave.
And the lack of American talent too. That's one.
I think if the players were a hell of a lot more tenacious, even with the league being dominated by European players, I think it will be a commodity.
I do too, and this goes to the point. Remember when the whole we done with the '90s thing when it was on TikTok? This is the reason why all us old heads talk about the '90s.
But is it also a testament to David Stern? Because rest his soul, David Stern, if he were still the commissioner of the NBA as opposed to Adam Silver, do you think he would allow too much of this player empowerment? No.
Hell no. That dude ran the NBA with an iron fist.
Right. Look at the dress code he implemented back in 2005.
Yeah. Well, the thing, and everybody got mad about it at the time, but at the same time, it's like you're again, what are you to the league? And that's the thing with, I'm gonna point out two things. One, thank you as an NFL fan. Thank you to Deshaun Watson for being a disgusting human being because you probably ended guaranteed contracts forever in the NFL. So thank you to Deshaun Watson. When it comes to LeBron James, as the biggest, as the second biggest star in NBA history, quote unquote, or best player ever, when you left you are going to leave the league in a worse place than when you came in. And that's a massive ding to his legacy as a whole. I know that's a joke, the whole meme of how does this affect LeBron's legacy, but as the biggest star of the league of the last 20 years, and you're going to leave the league in a worse position than it was, that's not good. That's not good at all. Your lasting legacy, the ending to your career essentially right now is looking like you got your son who isn't worth an NBA roster spot to play.
I think Go ahead. My bad.
And I just think I just think what the it always PSP, you brought up Adam Silver. Everything trickles downhill. If your commissioner and your biggest star are the way they are, everybody else is going to be the same. And now you've left the league in a worse position than it was when you started.
The problem, I think, with Adam Silver, I think he's too lenient with the players.
Yeah.
That's been the problem because we talked about this. I don't know, Champ, you and I, we discussed about this with John Morant. Had David Stern been the commissioner and John Morant got himself involved with the gun situation the very first time, needless to say, David Stern would have dropped the hammer.
Been suspended for at least a year. But if I can interject for like 30 seconds, you know what I think all of this player empowerment stems from? We can trace it all back to one incident. And that's DADS. Dumbass Donald Sterling. If he doesn't do what he does and those conversations don't get caught on tape, we don't have to worry about a lot of this player empowerment because of, you know, you get what I'm trying to say here? Because the thing is, there was a lot of pushback on the owners during that time because they didn't want to oust him.
Not just the owners, also Commissioner David Stern, too. He knew about Donald Sterling's history. But once it got exposed.
Yes. That's why I believe a little bit more player empowerment came through because of his dumb behind.
Well, and also I think
plus his girlfriend did, it was on TMZ, his girlfriend did audio record the conversation, which is illegal in the state of California.
Are you talking the blow up doll?
No, the Magic Johnson comment.
Yeah, V. Stiviano. That was the girlfriend Donald Sterling was dating at the time.
Yeah, she looked like a blow up doll.
Yeah, podcast. Never mind.
She looked like a blow up doll. But yeah, go ahead.
My God, Champ is on one.
I also think that. What did you say, PSP?
Champ is on one. Man, he's more ruthless. He's been watching Jim Cornette videos all of a sudden.
I also think it wasn't just. I don't think it wasn't. I think that was a big turning point. Yes, that was a huge momentum shift. But I also think when David Stern did implement the dress code, it was considered racist at the time. A lot of people yelled that out. Of why are you doing this? It's you're holding back, blah blah blah. And I think the multitude of and there's a thing, and David Stern, as much as he did run the league with an iron fist, there was backlash on how he was handling the league in some aspects because of it. He was doing so on compounding to what PSP said about him knowing about Sterling and the combination of how when this is not me saying that this was the problem. I'm just saying at the time when the NBA went through the thug problem or the thug era, and that was a big issue that spurred Stern to change the dress code and everything else. And then that leads into Donald Sterling. And then you do have the new millennial players coming up.
Yeah.
It was such a perfect storm to lead to player empowerment.
Yeah, because if Donald Sterling, with him being idiotic as he is, he doesn't come out and be a blatant racist. I hate to say that, but if he doesn't come out being a blatant racist, and he single-handedly changed the balance of power. Because at that point, the owners had more power. But the thing is, and the owners kind of played themselves during that problem as well. Because remember, everybody was talking about, well, that's a slippery slope. Well, I mean, damn. And the thing is, and I came out and said it, I mean, I got a lot of flack for this. The reason y'all keep saying this is a slippery slope because of what the shit y'all be saying behind closed doors. And I'm just being real. So the thing is that single-handedly, that one incident with Donald Sterling single-handedly changed the balance of power in the NBA. Because granted, players had powers before. Players had powers before,
Yeah.
Because I'll never forget Magic Johnson. He changed the way that players got paid for jerseys because he threatened to sit out for a year.
Yeah.
He threatened to sit out for a year. He said, look, me and Larry, we're going to sit out for a year until you start playing players their jersey. So there's always been player empowerment. But that one single incident with Donald Sterling forever changed player empowerment.
I do want to add James Dolan as an owner.
Oh, do you remember the no hole Anuka Brown Sanders situation?
Yeah, he added to it too. Yes, he added as much as Sterling did that one incident. James Dolan as a whole is in my opinion makes Dan Snyder look like Paul
a choir boy.
Yeah, choir boy. Like Dan. Yeah, like.
Yeah, I mean, remember his relationship at one point with Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Let's not forget Anuka Brown Sanders. On top of that, you bring in Isaiah Thomas to be a part of the WNBA.
Yeah.
After he was found liable of sexual harassment.
Like, he was so toxic. As like the conversation was so bad that LeBron and Wade and Bosh didn't go to the Knicks.
They didn't even take the meeting, did it?
No, I think
Spike Lee even tried to recruit Dwayne Wade to join the Heat.
And I think LeBron and Wade had the conversation. I don't quote me on that, but I think one of them did. And it went so poorly that they were like, yeah, no. And then Durant, who basically will go to any team, probably, and he would even go to a WNBA team at this point. Was so turned off by Dolan that he was like, I'm not coming here either. Like, that's you must either be the biggest idiot ever or that bad of a person.
Born on third base and thought he hit a triple.
Yeah. And I think
whoa, I've never heard that before.
That's a great one. I need that on a t-shirt.
I think that's what was said about George Bush at the time. There was some guy who said that. I heard Max Kellerman brought it up.
You're right. That was during it was during
third base, thought he hit a triple.
You're right. Yep.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I remember that. Yep.
That's great.
Dude, you need to sell merch that says that.
That's great.
But I think Dolan did more damage over a long term and as a whole than Sterling did in one moment. As bad as the Sterling thing was, and I'm not downplaying how awful of a person Sterling was too, but Dolan was just.
And I didn't even bring up Charles Oakley.
The fact that he had him kicked out. The fact that he had him kicked out of Madison Square Garden is just insane.
You mean the first man in NBA history to get a technical foul in the stands?
Besides Ron Artest, technically.
I mean, got to fight with the whole security staff. Damn. But yeah, that was a. But
I don't know what to do with Flash anymore. I'm just gonna go to bed.
But I don't know. Look, James Dolan. If you really ask me, he just lucked up into it, man. It's just like this gives like 1999 New York Knicks feel. It's just like you kind of luck into a situation to where everything just goes right and you have that perfect storm. That's how it feels right now with the Knicks.
Yeah.
Well, that's also that. Honestly, this New York Knicks team, the way they've been going on the up and up, it's him getting the hell out of the way and actually hiring people,
letting Leon Rose do the job,
and letting Leon Rose handle his business. Just my gosh, he needed to get out of the way and actually hire people that understood the game or that understood basketball, understand making decisions of that nature, handle business, and you just stay in the background. He finally did it, and he finally got good people in there, and that's why I feel like they're actually succeeding because they got good basketball minds in the front office, and he's just minding his business in the back, which is where he needs to stay.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what he should have done a long time ago. And besides, we all know Dolan likes to be he likes to do his music because in his own mind, his own fantasy, he views himself as a performer or a rock star. Go do that. If that's something that you want to do, that's fine. But let people in New York do the job. And also, James Dolan, why don't you stop being so petty and kicking fans out of the arena just because they say sell the team? Which is exactly what a lot of people in the NBA would want you to do, because because until now with the Knicks, they've been moribund.
Yeah. As for the Four Nations tournament, I just want to say bravo NHL, because you just made yourselves a ton of money. It was brilliant marketing. It was a brilliant idea. I want to say, as much as I said the United States couldn't lose that title game and they lost it, that Canadian goalie in overtime earned that, and I got no hate for that. That dude was standing on his head making saves that he shouldn't have been. So bravo to Canada. But I do want to say that the NHL figured it out, and to the players' credit in the NHL, they took it seriously. They took the moment and they made it theirs, and they made the whole world tune in. So bravo to them. And it made the conversation that, and I pointed it out, I said this in the chat, that what the dude said that basically crapped on the NBA and the NFL and everything else about their all-star games and stuff and the lack of effort. I don't know who the guy was, but that I think so. And is the video you posted in the chat. That was a taboo argument not long ago, because player empowerment was so powerful. Well, how dare you guys? You just want them to just these are so much worth. They're worth so much money and yada yada yada. And now people are starting to turn and turn against that. And it's like, in the NHL, what they did in the last 2 weeks, changed the conversation around sports and athletes. And I think for the better. I think, like the NFL and the way they've been trying to solve the Pro Bowl game for the last 20 years, 15 years. Mm-hmm. They don't try. And now it's not even a Pro Bowl game. It's just a skills competition now. And they're jumping in ball pits. Like,
You think it should be eradicated, Flash, the NBA All-Star game?
It should just go away. Just do an award show. I don't tune into this crap anymore. Dude, what happened? I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand how you, as a talent and as an athletic talent, that you can get to the All-Star game where the best of the best are all at that game, and you're just like, I don't want to see how good I am. I'm just going to coast it. I just, and again, maybe this is because I'm an old head, but
I don't think it's because of that, Flash. I just think because the NBA has, the players particularly, they just turned us off so much that because we have alternatives. I mean, we still, to this day, we're still talking about football. And to Cham's point, the NFL, they're winning the headlines. I mean, because even with the Christmas games, they did a far better job promoting the Christmas games than with the NBA on Christmas. I mean, look, with the Netflix, 24 million tuned in to watch the Chiefs Steelers, 24 million tuned in to watch the Ravens Texans, and then, of course, 27 million tuned in to see Beyonce perform at the halftime show.
Beyonce.
But I just think with the NBA, the players, essentially, I think it is time to throw away the All-Star game, because if you're not going to give us maximum effort, if you're not going to give us our money's worth, then what's the point?
Dude, I just want to see. And that's the thing. If I go to a game and I take my kid to an NBA and even the WWE, when you go to a SmackDown or a Raw, and let's say the biggest star doesn't come out after the show ends, like the live show, usually the biggest star will come out anyways. because that's what you go to pay to see. And it's like when you go to an NBA game, I'm going to go and pay $300, $400, $500 to take my kids, and LeBron's like, well, Bronny hurt his pinky toe, and as a dad, I just need to be able to sit on the sidelines with him and make sure he's okay. So I'm just going to sit out tonight. Like, no. BRF, are you okay? Am I going to give you an aneurysm?
Why they
no, the Lord have mercy.
Why they used to tell us in the Army, you don't get to be off because your goldfish died.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just lack of effort at this point. It's lack of effort, it's lack of competition, and eventually, like I said, NBA is in trouble already because, like I said, your incoming stars are not as big as your outgoing. There's so many more alternatives now. Hell, look, I'm gonna just be real. It's football season has been over for almost 2 weeks. Everybody's still watching the pages that each and every last one of us monitor because of football.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that the NBA can compete, I'm sorry to cut you off, Champ, but the only way for the NBA to compete, they have to lose in a fashion to which they have to realize and wake up. Remember with the Olympics, how after when in 2023 when the USA men's basketball team lost in the competition, and then when LeBron and other people decided to join in to win the Olympics in 2024, that's something like that's going to happen. And before the basketball season during the summer, we were talking about basketball. We were talking about the Olympics. We were talking about how great LeBron, KD, Steph, and were playing. Heck, we were even talking at one point, why did Steve Kerr bench Jason Tatum? And Flash, you were on my pod. We even talked about how come they didn't select Jaylen Brown after winning the NBA Finals and Finals MVP. Could it be because of the controversy? Because he's a controversial guy? Could it be because of Nike? Because of what they did to Kyrie Irving, who he is a supporter of?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Uh-huh. I want to point out, like, what we're talking about the NBA right now. And the NHL went through something similar too, and they've had to kind of crawl their way back into the spotlight a little bit as a sports organization, entity, or whatever. But the NFL, as much as it's king right now, they got to be careful. They're not that far off from what the NBA was 10 years ago. If the NFL keeps going with the rule changes to make the game softer and take away from the game of what it really is, which is a violent sport and what people want to see, and then all of a sudden we get to guaranteed contracts, and I'm just saying that the NFL needs to watch it, because people are willing to turn off the TV.
Turn his TV off.
It can be a thing, and it will be a thing. The NBA, not long ago, was number 2 to the NFL, and they were like, "Wow, the NBA might take over the NFL at some point. The players are more accessible. You can see their faces. Blah 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 blah." You have all the marketing, the fashion, the music industry. And now we're talking 10 years later, how is the NBA going to survive they'll survive, obviously, but why does nobody care?
Well, another thing before we end it all, there's not a lot of compelling stories in the NBA at this point.
Mm.
We're just going to be real honest. Last
Only
year,
compelling story we talked about is Luka.
Yeah. And the thing is this. Look, I'm going to just recap something, and it's going to take me like 2 minutes to do it. Last year in sports, we started off in, let's say, March. We started off like right before the WNBA season began, right? So within that month alone, we had more than, I'm talking about just on this show alone, we had so many storylines in the WNBA that we could talk about.
Yeah.
We was talking about Caitlin versus Angel Reese. We was talking about how Asia Wilson was the Dr. J of the league, and she was not getting a lot of credit for what she was doing, although she was scoring all these points. There was a narrative behind how bad at times the Las Vegas Aces were playing, because it's like, damn, y'all back-to-back champions, y'all playing this damn terrible. Then let's not forget when, Caitlin Clark faced off against Asia Wilson. Let's not forget that. Then you had the injury that Cameron Brink suffered. And that was just in a 2-month span. Then you had the Olympic break. And then the biggest controversy around that is, okay, why wasn't Caitlin Clark chosen? Then you had the All-Star break. 2 of the biggest stars that are incoming in the league, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. So, and that was just that was before the All-Star. That was before the All-Star Olympic break. All of that was a storyline.
And then we had the Indiana Fever after that.
Then we had
making a run. Yep.
And we knew that Caitlin Clark, she was going to win Rookie of the Year. She was even in discussions for the MVP.
Yeah. He was even in the discussion for the MVP. Then on top of the stuff on the court, you had the stuff off the court with, a lot of the commentators. We ain't going to say no names. We had a lot of the commentators who were former WNBA players who had some things to say. We were trying to clear. There's not a lot of stories in the NBA at this point. The sport tells the story, but the story sells the sport.
I know I'm digressing a bit, champ. Hell, we've even heard more stories about Jason Whitlock than in the NBA.
You know what? On that note, man, I'm gonna just be real.
You know exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah, of course. I'm not gonna say it. We're gonna keep it.
Champ. Can we end it on a clean note, champ? Can we end it on a clean note?
We're gonna end it on a clean note. We go.
I can't with none of y'all anymore, bro. Just man.
On that note, man, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and end it all and not go Carmelo and risk it all. So on that note, man, let's go ahead and end it on that note. PSP, thank you so much for showing up, man. We appreciate you, man. Always good to have you as a special guest on the show, man. Tell the people where to follow you at.
Sports PSP Podcast. Please go like and subscribe to the podcast. Just came out with the new episode, favorite Jonathan Coachman moment. Champ, BRF, and I had a blast on that one, especially Champ, especially with the types of colorful language that he used as well. Go check Instagram, YouTube, so much more. Always a pleasure being on the pod. Thank you as always, Champ, and continue to do great things as well, man.
Yeah, man. Look. PSP Podcast is now at 83K. Hey, Mount Everest ain't got nothing on you, brother. So we gonna leave it at that. Flash.
You can find me here every Saturday night with the best crew on the internet today. And also thanks for PSP to come on the podcast. We have a habit of riling each other up, which I appreciate.
Yes.
And then you can find me on Flash22 on Instagram and on TikTok.
BRF.
BRF Sports is a TikTok handle. Y'all definitely go. Find the page, find the content. Give me a like. Give me a like. Give me a follow. Definitely appreciate it. My link tree is also in the bio. You can follow my IG, follow my Twitter /X, follow the Facebook page as well. And as always, you can definitely find me Friday nights on Sports PSP Podcast. You find me every Saturday night here with this crew right here, Undisputed Go Sports Podcast. The UGSB, the UGSP is what I'm about to start referring to it because it's too long to say. So we got to shorten it up a little bit. So we the UGSP now. But anyway, it's always a pleasure to get on here and cut it up with y'all and talk sports and just have a blast. Do it the way that only we can do it. And it's a blessing to just have, like I said, I'll say it again, it's a blessing to have this opportunity. to have a platform like this and to share the stage with all of y'all. So continue success to all of y'all, and we're gonna keep this rolling. We're gonna keep this pushing. And as I like to always say, and I gotta end it with my slogan: a topic not thought about is a topic not talked about.
Yes,
Indeed.
Yes, indeed. Thank y'all, man. And thank y'all for tuning in, man. And look, everybody who watches the show, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, man. We appreciate all the love, all the support. And on the last note of the show, I will say this, like I said it on PSP shows last night, huge shout out and rest in peace to the great Villetta Wallace, the mother of Biggie Smalls. We thank you for every contribution that you made to not only the hip hop community, but the community in whole once your son passed away. And you was one of the beacons of hope in hip hop once he passed away. And thank you for being a beacon of hope since the day he passed. So we thank you for everything that you did, Mrs. Wallace, and we appreciate you. And we salute you from Georgia to New Jersey, all the way up to the frozen tundra of Wisconsin. Thank you, Mrs. Wallace. And on that note, we are out. Holla at a player when you see me in the streets.